What if the reality you perceive isn't real, but a carefully constructed illusion, an illusion masking a hidden war, an ancient battle for the very nature of reality itself? For millennia, a secret has been whispered, a radical idea challenging everything we think we know about the world, ourselves, and the divine. This is the core of the Gnostic worldview, the belief that a divine spark resides within each of us, imprisoned within a material world crafted by an imperfect or even malevolent being. Consider texts like the Apocryphon of John, where this cosmic drama unfolds in vivid detail, revealing a creation far removed from divine perfection. This flawed creator, known as the Demiurge, is a recurring symbol of limitation and ignorance. He isn't necessarily evil in the conventional sense, but rather a being limited in its understanding of the true, transcendent God, the unknowable source from which all things ultimately emanate. Is the Demiurge a tyrannical god, or simply a misguided craftsman, blind to the higher realities? Gnosticism wasn't a monolithic religion, but a diverse collection of ancient mystical traditions that flourished in the ancient world, challenging the dominant religious and philosophical views of the time. The discovery of the Nag Hammadi Library in 1945 revealed a wealth of Gnostic texts, offering a glimpse into a world of hidden knowledge and persecuted wisdom. These beliefs were suppressed by the early church, deemed heretical and dangerous. What truths were they so desperate to conceal? The Gnostic worldview resonates deeply with modern seekers for a multitude of reasons. A growing disillusionment with traditional religion, a questioning of authority, and a yearning for authentic spiritual experience in a world that often feels chaotic and meaningless. We see it reflected in our own anxieties about control, manipulation, and the manufactured nature of modern reality. Isn't this why figures like Neo in the Matrix resonate so deeply? A character yearning to know what's really going on. But Gnosticism offers more than just a critique of reality. It offers a path to personal transformation through gnosis, direct, experiential knowledge of the divine. This isn't merely a set of beliefs, but a journey of self-discovery, a process of empowerment, and a potential liberation from the perceived limitations of the material world. Imagine, for a moment, someone tirelessly searching for meaning, feeling trapped by societal norms and empty promises, sensing a deeper truth just beyond their grasp. This is the modern Gnostic seeker. These beliefs, if taken seriously, force us to re-evaluate our understanding of the self, the world, and the divine. Conventional notions of good and evil become blurred, the nature of creation and destruction is questioned, and the very meaning of salvation is up for debate. Are we meant to simply accept the world as it is, or strive to awaken from a deep slumber? Ultimately, Gnosticism lays bare a fundamental battle, the conflict between light and darkness, spirit and matter, knowledge and ignorance. It emphasizes the crucial importance of seeking truth and questioning authority, even when it means challenging deeply held beliefs, perhaps even those unknowingly implanted by the Demiurge. Could our modern institutions unknowingly be serving this flawed creator? To truly understand this ancient war, we must first delve into Gnosticism's origins, exploring its intricate relationship with Judaism, Christianity, and other mystery religions of the ancient world. Figures like Valentinus and Basilides emerge as key architects of Gnostic thought, each offering unique perspectives on the nature of reality and the path to salvation. What core elements connect these diverse thinkers? Central to Gnostic cosmology are key concepts like the Demiurge, often identified as Yaldabaoth, Sophia, divine wisdom, Gnosis, inner knowing, the Eons, divine emanations, and the Pleroma, the fullness of divine reality. Consider the Archons, for example. These beings wield considerable control in this system. But how do they exert that control, and what are its limits? The Gnostic creation myth serves as a foundational narrative, telling the story of Sophia's fall and the subsequent creation of the Demiurge, a pivotal event that shaped our perceived reality. The path to liberation, according to the Gnostics, involves awakening to our true divine nature, remembering our celestial origins, and ultimately escaping the cycle of reincarnation finding the way out of this flawed creation. But how does one practically begin that escape? Is our reality truly as it seems, or is it a cleverly designed simulation, a prison for the mind? What is the true nature of the Demiurge, a malevolent tyrant, or a misguided creator stumbling in the dark? And most importantly, how can we achieve gnosis and break free from the Demiurge's perceived control, reclaiming our divine birthright? Within the hidden knowledge and practices of Gnosticism lie secret rituals, esoteric interpretations of scripture, and the pursuit of altered states of consciousness, hinting at a living practice, not just an abstract theory. Could these practices offer a tangible path to gnosis, a way to directly experience the divine? Consider the Demiurge as a powerful metaphor, perhaps a reflection of the ego, the societal control mechanisms that subtly shape our behavior, or even the limitations of the human mind itself. Are we trapped within our own self-imposed prisons, unknowingly perpetuating the Demiurge's flawed creation? Might the Gnostic view of the material world as a prison planet, ruled by the archons, actually be a description of our modern world? Gnostic principles can be found woven into modern media, philosophy, and psychology, offering a new lens through which to view the world around us. Are we living in a simulation without realizing it, trapped in a cycle of ignorance and suffering? And more importantly, how do we awaken from this dream? Let's begin. What if the intricate tapestry of the Gnostic creation myth isn't a literal retelling of cosmic events, but a profound allegory, a symbolic map charting the terrain of the human soul and its journey towards spiritual awakening, a guide, perhaps, to navigating the treacherous landscapes of our inner world? To grasp this transformative perspective, we must first revisit the Gnostic creation myth. Remember Sophia, the divine emanation whose yearning for knowledge led to the birth of the Demiurge, a flawed creator who fashioned the material world, a world often perceived as a pale reflection of the true spiritual reality of the Pleroma. The Pleroma, that fullness of divine being, populated by the eons, those emanations of the one true God. Recall that each emanation represents an aspect of the divine, a fragment of the unknowable whole expressing itself in manifold forms. But let us be clear, we are not concerned here with the literal historicity of these accounts, nor with debating their theological accuracy. Many interpretations of this myth exist, and we acknowledge their validity. Rather, our focus is on understanding the myth's enduring symbolic power, its capacity to illuminate the human condition, and the path towards spiritual liberation. What insights can we glean when we view this elaborate cosmology as a mirror reflecting our own inner struggles, our own yearning for truth and liberation? What secrets might be unlocked when the Demiurge becomes a symbol not of an external deity, but an internal force? To unlock these secrets, we must approach the Gnostic scriptures with an allegorical lens, understanding that their true meaning lies not on the surface, but in the deeper symbolic currents that flow beneath the narrative. Think of a spiritual allegory as a story imbued with hidden meaning, a tapestry woven with symbols that point to universal truths about the human experience. This is especially true of Gnostic scriptures. The Gnostic creation myth, when viewed through this lens, becomes a potent map of the spiritual journey. Sophia's initial desire and subsequent error, for example, represent the soul's yearning for knowledge and experience, a desire that leads it to descend from the Pleroma into the material world. The emanation of the Demiurge symbolizes the creation of the ego, that limited and often distorted sense of self that obscures our true divine nature. The creation of the material world itself becomes a metaphor for the prison of illusion, the cycle of suffering and ignorance that binds us to a false reality. What would it mean to escape from that prison? Spiritual awakening, then, mirrors the soul's escape from the Demiurge's control. It begins with recognizing the illusion, seeing through the veil of material existence to glimpse the true reality beyond. This recognition sparks a yearning for gnosis, a direct, experiential knowledge of the divine. Gnosis is achieved through deep introspection, self-inquiry, and practices that quiet the mind and open the heart. As we cultivate Gnosis, we begin to align ourselves with the true divine source, transcending the limitations of the ego and the material world. Does this resonate with the allegory of the cave, found within Plato's Republic? The parallels with other spiritual traditions are striking. Plato's allegory of the cave, where prisoners mistake shadows for reality, echoes the Gnostic view of the material world as a realm of illusion. Similarly, the concept of Maya in Hinduism, the illusory nature of the material world that veils the true reality of Brahman, resonates with the Gnostic understanding of the Demiurge's creation. So, what does this all mean? The Gnostic creation myth, interpreted allegorically, serves as a powerful spiritual map, guiding us on a journey of self-discovery and liberation. It reveals the illusions that bind us, the forces that obscure our true nature, and the path that leads us back to the divine source. Let us now turn to specific examples, illuminating how this allegorical framework can unlock deeper understanding of the Gnostic path. Consider Sophia's fall, her separation from the pleroma. Is this not a potent symbol of the soul's descent into the material world? Driven by a thirst for knowledge, for experience, the soul ventures beyond the familiar embrace of the divine, plunging into the unknown depths of the material realm. But this fall, as tragic as it may seem, is not a cosmic accident, but a necessary stage in the unfolding of cosmic evolution, a crucial step in the soul's journey towards self-realization. Driven by her desire and subsequent separation from the pleroma, Sophia unknowingly initiated the creation of the Demiurge, a being both powerful and profoundly limited. The Demiurge, in turn, shaped the material world, an inherently flawed realm teeming with imperfection and suffering, a direct consequence of its distance from the divine source. Is it possible, then, to understand our experience of suffering and ignorance through Sophia's separation from the divine? Viewed allegorically, Sophia's fall becomes a powerful metaphor for the soul's yearning for understanding, its subsequent entanglement in the illusions of the material realm, and the resulting experiences of suffering and ignorance. The soul, in its quest for knowledge, becomes enmeshed in the web of sensory experience, mistaking the fleeting shadows of the material world for the enduring reality of the divine. But is this entanglement a trap or an opportunity? Let's consider some specific examples. The Demiurge, that flawed creator, can be seen as a symbol of the ego, that self-centered, limited sense of identity that obscures our true divine nature. Just as the Demiurge mistakenly believes himself to be the supreme God, the ego deludes us into believing that we are separate from the divine source, trapped within the confines of our individual minds and bodies. Is the ego the true architect of our suffering? Furthermore, the Gnostic perspective of the material world as a prison planet reflects the limitations, suffering, and perceived lack of freedom that characterize human existence. The archons, those shadowy beings who serve the Demiurge, can be seen as the forces that maintain this prison, manipulating our thoughts and emotions, keeping us enslaved to the cycle of desire and aversion. Might the archons be reflections of our own internal demons? Gnosis, then, emerges as the key to liberation, the way out of this perceived prison. Through direct, experiential knowledge of the divine, we can transcend the limitations of the ego and the illusions of the material world, reconnecting with our true divine nature. But remember, all Gnostic texts point to first-hand experience as the true path, not merely intellectual assent. This experience cannot be read, it must be lived. What practices, then, might lead us towards such an experience? By viewing the Gnostic creation myth as spiritual allegory, we gain a powerful lens through which to understand our own path toward transformation. Sophia's fall, the Demiurge's creation, and the material world's illusions all become symbolic representations of our inner struggles, our yearning for knowledge, and our quest for liberation. This framework provides us a lens through which we may see that the path to Gnosis and its implications for understanding reality may be closer than we think. But how exactly does one begin to walk this path, now that we understand the Gnostic creation myth as a symbolic map, how do we navigate it? What is the Gnostic path to Gnosis, and how does it lead to a transformed understanding of reality? Is it merely a set of philosophical tenets, or a living, breathing path of transformation? It's crucial to understand that Gnosis is not merely intellectual knowledge, a collection of facts and figures about Gnostic cosmology. Rather, it is direct, experiential knowledge of the divine, a visceral understanding achieved through inner work and spiritual practice. Think of it as the difference between reading about swimming and actually diving into the water. All the Gnostic scriptures in the world are useless without this experiential component, without the courage to embark on the inner journey. Is this why so few truly attain Gnosis? The Gnostic path, then, is a journey of self-discovery and spiritual awakening. Its core elements can be seen as stepping stones, guiding us towards a transformed understanding of reality. These include self-awareness, rejection of the Demiurge's illusions, cultivation of inner vision, and ultimately, union with the divine source. Each element intertwines and amplifies the others, propelling the seeker further along the path. But what do each of these entail, and how can we begin to embody them in our lives? Self-awareness is the cornerstone of the Gnostic path, the essential starting point for any genuine spiritual quest. It involves understanding one's own thoughts, emotions, and motivations, recognizing the patterns that govern our behavior. This is not a passive observation, but an active and ongoing process of self-inquiry. This, of course, demands brutal honesty. Crucially, this involves recognizing the ego as a construct of the Demiurge, a false self that obscures our true divine nature. The ego, with its endless desires and anxieties, its relentless pursuit of validation and control, is a powerful force that keeps us trapped in the illusions of the material world. Can we truly know ourselves if we are blinded by the ego? Practices to cultivate self-awareness include mindfulness meditation, journaling, and shadow work. Mindfulness meditation allows us to observe our thoughts and emotions without judgment, creating space between ourselves and our mental activity. Journaling provides a space for self-reflection and exploration, allowing us to identify patterns and beliefs that may be holding us back. Shadow work, a concept borrowed from Jungian psychology, involves confronting and integrating the repressed aspects of our personality, the dark side of our ego that we often try to avoid. What hidden truths might be revealed when we embrace our shadow? Rejection of the Demiurge's illusions is the next essential element, building directly upon the foundation of self-awareness. This involves questioning the values, beliefs, and assumptions of the material world, seeing them as traps designed to keep us enslaved to the Demiurge's control. It's a process of deconstruction, of dismantling the false narratives that have been imposed upon us by society, culture, and even our own families. Recognizing societal conditioning is a key aspect of this rejection. We are bombarded with messages from advertising, media, and authority figures that tell us what to believe, how to behave, and what to value. Challenging authority, not for the sake of rebellion, but in the pursuit of truth, is essential. Rejecting consumerism, with its endless cycle of desire and acquisition, is another crucial step. The Demiurge would have us believe that happiness lies in material possessions, but the Gnostic knows that true fulfillment comes from within. But is it possible to live in the world, but not be of it? Cultivation of inner vision is the next step on the Gnostic path, a natural outgrowth of self-awareness and the rejection of illusions. Gnostics sought to develop their inner senses and intuitive abilities through practices such as contemplation, dream work, and visionary experiences. This is not about escaping reality, but about perceiving it more fully, more deeply, with all of our senses, both inner and outer. Techniques for opening the inner eye or third eye include meditation, visualization, and focused intention. Connecting with inner guidance involves cultivating a relationship with our intuition, learning to trust our inner knowing. Interpreting symbolic imagery, whether in dreams, art, or nature, can provide valuable insights into the workings of our unconscious mind. But how do we distinguish genuine inner vision from mere fantasy or wishful thinking? Union with the divine source, the ultimate goal of the Gnostic path, involves transcending the limitations of the ego and the material world to achieve a direct, unmediated connection with the true God or source. This is not a passive process of belief, but an active experience of communion, a merging of the individual self with the universal consciousness. Mystical experiences, altered states of consciousness, and the dissolution of the self into the divine are all potential pathways to this union. The goal is not to escape the material world entirely, but to transform it, to infuse it with the light of Gnosis. But can we truly unite with the divine while still embodied in the material world? These four elements, self-awareness, rejection of illusions, cultivation of inner vision, and union with the divine source, are not separate and distinct steps, but rather interconnected and interdependent aspects of a single, unified path. Each element informs and enhances the others, creating a virtuous cycle of spiritual growth. Now let us consider some specific examples, illuminating how this path has been understood and practiced throughout history. The Gospel of Thomas stands as a key text that emphasizes self-knowledge and inner transformation, contrasting it with external religious practices. Unlike the Gospels that focus on the life and teachings of Jesus, the Gospel of Thomas presents a collection of sayings attributed to him, many of which promote self-awareness and the discovery of the divine within. This text offers a profound glimpse into the heart of Gnostic spirituality. What secrets might these sayings reveal about the path to Gnosis? Consider saying 3, if you bring forth what is within you, what you bring forth will save you. If you do not bring forth what is within you, what you do not bring forth will destroy you. This saying encapsulates the core Gnostic principle of self-discovery as the path to salvation. It suggests that the divine spark lies dormant within each of us, waiting to be awakened. If we ignore this inner potential, we risk self-destruction. But is it truly that simple? Valentinian Gnosticism, a prominent school of thought in the early centuries of Christianity, offers another valuable perspective on the Gnostic path. Valentinians engaged in practices such as contemplation, prayer, and the sacraments, highlighting their focus on inner experience and union with the divine. Their approach was deeply symbolic, emphasizing the importance of interpreting scripture and ritual in an esoteric light. Might their rituals offer a roadmap to inner transformation? Valentinians used symbolic rituals and esoteric interpretations of scripture to awaken Gnosis and achieve spiritual liberation. They believed that the sacraments, such as baptism and communion, were not merely external acts, but powerful tools for inner transformation. They saw the material world as a reflection of the divine and sought to find the sacred within the mundane. But were their practices truly effective, or were they merely elaborate forms of self-deception? Modern Gnostic practices offer yet another lens through which to understand this ancient path. Contemporary approaches to Gnostic spirituality include meditation, self-inquiry, and ethical living. These practices can help modern seekers cultivate self-awareness, reject illusions, and connect with their true divine nature. They emphasize personal experience and direct knowing, rather than blind faith or adherence to dogma. But how can we adapt these ancient practices to our modern lives? The use of Jungian psychology in Gnostic practice provides a compelling example. Integrating shadow work and dream analysis can help us understand the unconscious mind and integrate repressed aspects of the self. This approach recognizes the importance of psychological integration as a crucial step on the path to spiritual liberation. But can psychology truly unlock the secrets of the soul? These practices, regardless of their specific form, offer a path towards liberation from the perceived constraints of reality. By cultivating self-awareness, rejecting illusions, developing inner vision, and seeking union with the divine, the Gnostic seeks to transcend the limitations of the Demiurge's creation and awaken to their true potential. Is this liberation a true escape from suffering or merely a shift in perspective? The key takeaways from these examples are clear. The Gnostic path is not a passive set of beliefs, but an active and ongoing process of self-discovery and transformation. It requires courage, honesty, and a willingness to question everything we think we know about ourselves and the world around us. It emphasizes personal experience over dogma, inner knowing over external authority. But where does this path ultimately lead, and what awaits us at the end of our journey? Let us now turn to a deeper exploration of Gnostic ethics and how they can guide us on our quest for liberation. Having explored the Gnostic path to Gnosis, let's now examine how Gnostics perceived and responded to the Demiurge's flawed world, a response that can be framed as a form of spiritual warfare. But let us make no mistake, this was not a physical conflict, a clash of armies or nations. Rather, it was a spiritual and intellectual struggle against the perceived illusion of reality, against the very fabric of the Demiurge's creation. Is this war not still being waged today, albeit in different forms? This war, then, is waged within the self, a battle for the mind and soul. It is not about destroying the material world, but about awakening from its illusions, about transcending its limitations and connecting with the true divine reality that lies beyond the Demiurge's control. The method of engagement is through achieving gnosis, a direct, experiential knowledge of the divine that shatters the illusions of the material world. The question then becomes, what were the key strategies employed by Gnostics in this war, and how can they be applied to our own lives today in our own struggles for truth and meaning? One of the core strategies employed by Gnostics in this spiritual war was negative theology, or via negationists. Negative theology, at its heart, is a method of approaching the divine by negating all finite and limited attributes. It is the recognition that the true God is beyond all human comprehension, beyond all categories and definitions. God is not simply good, powerful, or wise, for these are human concepts, limited by our own experience. Instead, God is not limited, not finite, not comprehensible. Can we truly understand the infinite by assigning it finite qualities? Gnostics used negative theology to dismantle false conceptions of God promoted by the Demiurge. The Demiurge, in their view, was a flawed and limited being who falsely believed himself to be the true God. By negating the attributes of this false God, by recognizing his limitations and imperfections, Gnostics paved the way for a direct, unmediated experience of the true divine. This was a radical act of spiritual defiance, a rejection of the authority of the Demiurge, and a claiming of one's own spiritual autonomy. It's a crucial step in reclaiming one's sovereignty over their own mind. Another key strategy was the deconstruction of false beliefs. Gnostics actively challenged the values, beliefs, and assumptions of the material world, seeing them as traps designed to keep humanity enslaved to the Demiurge's control. They understood that the material world, with its endless cycle of desire and suffering, was not the true reality, but a distorted reflection of it. This realization demanded a complete reevaluation of everything they had been taught to believe. Are the values we hold so dear truly our own, or have they been implanted in us by external forces? This deconstruction involved questioning authority, rejecting societal norms, and dismantling the ego's false sense of self. It meant challenging the power structures that perpetuated the illusion of the material world, from religious institutions to political systems. It meant rejecting the pursuit of wealth, status, and power, recognizing them as empty and ultimately unsatisfying pursuits. And perhaps most importantly, it meant dismantling the ego, the false self that clings to these illusions for its own survival. This is no easy task, as the ego will fight tooth and nail to maintain its grip on our consciousness. The elevation of inner experience was the third crucial strategy in this spiritual war. Gnostics emphasized the importance of direct, experiential knowledge of the divine, of gnosis itself, over external religious practices or intellectual doctrines. They believed that true knowledge could not be found in books or rituals, but only through direct, personal experience. This emphasis on inner experience was a radical departure from the prevailing religious norms of their time, and it remains a powerful challenge to conventional religion today. Is it not more valuable to know God than to simply believe in Him? Gnostics cultivated their inner senses and intuitive abilities through practices such as meditation, contemplation, and visionary experiences. They sought to quiet the mind, to silence the ego, and to open themselves to the direct experience of the divine. This was not a passive process, but an active and intentional cultivation of inner awareness. They sought to bypass the rational mind, to access the deeper levels of consciousness where true knowledge resides. Through these practices, they sought to awaken the divine spark within themselves, the spark of gnosis that would lead them to liberation. These three strategies, negative theology, deconstruction of false beliefs, and elevation of inner experience, all work together to dismantle the perceived reality of the Demiurge and to awaken the seeker to the true divine reality. They are not separate and distinct practices, but rather interconnected and interdependent aspects of a single, unified approach to spiritual warfare. By negating the false, deconstructing the illusions, and elevating the inner experience, the Gnostic seeks to break free from the chains of the Demiurge and to reclaim their true, divine nature. Let us now turn to some specific examples in Gnostic texts, illuminating how these strategies were understood and applied in practice. The Apocryphon of John stands as a key text for understanding the Gnostic critique of the Demiurge and the material world, offering a powerful example of negative theology and the deconstruction of false beliefs. This text presents a radical alternative to the traditional creation myth, portraying the Demiurge as a blind, arrogant, and ignorant being who falsely believes himself to be the true God, creating a flawed and limited reality. This portrayal challenges traditional notions of God as all-powerful and all-knowing, and it encourages seekers to question authority and embrace their own inner knowing. But is it not blasphemy to question the very nature of God, or is it the ultimate act of spiritual courage? In the Apocryphon of John, the Demiurge, also known as Yaldabaoth, proclaims, "I am God, and there is no other God beside me." This statement, dripping with arrogance and ignorance, is a direct challenge to the true divine reality. The text goes on to describe the Demiurge's flawed creation, a world filled with suffering, ignorance, and illusion. By exposing the Demiurge's limitations and imperfections, the Apocryphon of John encourages seekers to reject his authority and to seek the true God beyond his control. This text serves as a potent reminder that we must not blindly accept the authority of those who claim to know the truth, but must instead seek our own direct experience of the divine. In contrast, the Gospel of Truth offers a more poetic and mystical exploration of gnosis and the path to liberation, contrasting it with the harsh dualism of other Gnostic texts. Where other texts emphasize the separation between the true God and the Demiurge, the Gospel of Truth focuses on the healing of the divisions created by the Demiurge, highlighting the importance of inner transformation and the restoration of unity. This text portrays gnosis as a process of self-discovery and the recognition of our true divine nature, leading to a transformed understanding of reality. Does this text offer a more compassionate path to liberation? The Gospel of Truth emphasizes love, compassion, and forgiveness as essential elements of the Gnostic path. It speaks of the error of the Demiurge, but it does not condemn him. Instead, it emphasizes the need to heal the divisions created by this error, to restore the unity of all things. This text portrays gnosis not as a rejection of the material world, but as a transformation of it, a process of infusing it with the light of the true divine. It encourages seekers to see the divine in all things, even in the midst of suffering and illusion. This emphasis on love and compassion offers a powerful counterbalance to the more dualistic and world-rejecting tendencies of some other Gnostic texts, perhaps revealing that the war against the Demiurge is less about destroying him and more about enlightening him. Lastly, in the Gospel of Philip, the concept of the bridal chamber comes to the fore. This bridal chamber is not a physical space, but a symbolic sacred space that represents the reuniting of the self that has achieved gnosis with the divine. It is the culmination of the Gnostic path, the ultimate union of the individual soul with the true God. But what must one do to enter this chamber, and what awaits those who succeed? These examples, drawn from a small handful of Gnostic texts, reveal a clear pattern. The dismantling of false assumptions is crucial to understanding the real. The Demiurge, as a symbol of ignorance and illusion, must be understood in order to transcend his limitations. The false reality he has created must be deconstructed in order to reveal the true reality that lies beneath. But how can we apply these ancient strategies to our modern lives? How can we wage our own spiritual war against the illusions of the contemporary world? Gnostic principles can be applied to challenge contemporary illusions and limitations, such as societal conditioning, consumerism, and the pursuit of external validation. By practicing mindfulness, we can become more aware of our thoughts and emotions, recognizing the patterns that govern our behavior. By questioning authority and challenging unjust systems, we can dismantle the power structures that perpetuate the illusion of the material world. And by cultivating inner peace and contentment, we can reject the endless cycle of desire and acquisition that keeps us enslaved to the Demiurge's control. But is it possible to truly escape the clutches of societal conditioning in a world that is increasingly interconnected and interdependent? Consider practicing mindfulness to become aware of our thoughts and emotions, questioning authority and challenging unjust systems, and cultivating inner peace and contentment. Furthermore, Gnostic insights can inform our understanding of modern issues such as environmental destruction, social inequality, and the control of information. By recognizing the Demiurge as a metaphor for the ego and its destructive tendencies, we can challenge the illusion of separation and embrace our interconnectedness with all beings. By seeking truth and knowledge beyond the limitations of mainstream narratives, we can resist the control of information and reclaim our own intellectual autonomy. Could the Demiurge be seen as the embodiment of our collective ego, driving us towards self-destruction? It is crucial to remember that Gnostic knowledge is just a tool. It must be applied practically to experience gnosis and achieve transformation. Simply reading about Gnostic principles is not enough. We must actively engage with these principles, embodying them in our daily lives. We must cultivate self-awareness, reject illusions, and seek direct experience of the divine. Only then can we hope to break free from the chains of the Demiurge and to awaken to our true potential. But is it truly possible to achieve lasting transformation in a world that is constantly bombarding us with illusions and distractions? The idea of the Demiurge as a universal archetype is present in various aspects of modern life, hinting at a deeper, more pervasive control mechanism. From the manipulative tactics of advertising to the oppressive structures of political power, the Demiurge's influence can be seen everywhere. By recognizing these patterns, we can begin to dismantle them, reclaiming our own autonomy and paving the way for a more just and compassionate world. But are we truly capable of dismantling these deeply entrenched systems of control, or are we merely tilting at windmills? Ultimately, the path to gnosis is a journey of individual experience and self-discovery. It is not about blindly following a set of rules or adhering to a particular dogma. It is about seeking our own direct experience of the divine, about trusting our own inner knowing, and about transforming our understanding of reality from the inside out. As we continue to explore the depths of Gnostic wisdom, remember that the true battleground lies within. It is there, in the depths of our own consciousness, that the war against the Demiurge must be waged. What, then, are the ethical implications of this inner war, and how should a Gnostic live in a world still dominated by the Demiurge's influence? Addressing the ethical implications of this inner war, and how a Gnostic might live in a world still dominated by the Demiurge's influence, demands a nuanced understanding of their subversive strategies. The Gnostic war, as we have framed it, wasn't merely about recognizing illusion, but about actively subverting it, about reclaiming the very fabric of reality from the perceived control of the Demiurge. But what does such subversion entail, and how did Gnostics put it into practice? This subversion wasn't a call to physical arms or violent rebellion, but a more profound and subtle form of resistance. Gnostics sought to undermine the Demiurge's control by reinterpreting scripture, employing symbolism, and developing psychological techniques that challenged the very foundations of his perceived reality. Was this not a form of psychological warfare waged against the cosmic order itself, a battle for the minds and souls of humanity? It's crucial to emphasize that this subversion wasn't rooted in nihilistic rebellion or destructive intent. Rather, it was driven by a desire to reclaim individual sovereignty, to awaken from the illusion of the material world, and to align with the true divine source that lay beyond the Demiurge's limited creation. It was, in essence, a journey of self-discovery and spiritual liberation. How then did Gnostics specifically subvert the Demiurge's control through these unique interpretations, symbolism, and psychological strategies? One of the core strategies of Gnostic subversion was the radical reinterpretation of scripture. We can define this as the act of taking a foundational text, often considered sacred, and offering an alternative reading that undermines commonly held beliefs and reveals hidden or suppressed meanings. But is this not a dangerous game, to tamper with the very word of God? Gnostics astutely reinterpreted Jewish and Christian texts to expose what they saw as the Demiurge's limitations, his ignorance, and his flawed creation. They didn't necessarily dismiss these texts outright, but rather sought to unlock the esoteric truths they believed were concealed within them, veiled from the masses who were content to accept the literal interpretations. They looked beyond the surface narratives to reveal the deeper symbolic meanings that pointed toward the path of gnosis. Through this lens, the Demiurge was not the supreme god of all, but a lesser, flawed deity, an impostor even, whose authority could and should be questioned. Isn't this search for hidden meanings the very essence of esoteric inquiry? Another crucial strategy was the use of symbolic language and imagery. Symbols, after all, are powerful tools that can bypass the limitations of rational thought and directly communicate with the subconscious mind. Gnostic symbols served as potent keys to unlock esoteric truths and awaken inner knowing. Yet, why is symbolism so important to the esoteric tradition? Gnostic symbols, such as the serpent, the tree of knowledge, and the divine spark, were not merely decorative elements or artistic flourishes. They were carefully chosen and imbued with deeper meanings, designed to awaken the dormant potential within individuals and challenge conventional morality. The serpent, for instance, was not seen as a symbol of evil or temptation, as in traditional Christian interpretations, but as an agent of knowledge and liberation, the bringer of wisdom that could free humanity from the Demiurge's control. The tree of knowledge, likewise, was not a forbidden object, but a source of enlightenment and self-awareness. This conscious overturning of accepted symbolism served as a direct challenge to the Demiurge's established order. If symbols are so powerful, can they be also used as tools of deception and control? Finally, Gnostics understood the power of the human mind and the importance of cultivating inner awareness. They developed and applied various psychological techniques aimed at dismantling the ego, challenging false beliefs, and cultivating inner vision, all in the pursuit of a higher state of consciousness, namely, freedom from the Demiurge. But can we truly trust our own minds, or are they also subject to the Demiurge's influence? It's important to note that psychological here doesn't refer to modern clinical psychology, but rather to techniques aimed at understanding how the mind itself works, how it constructs reality, and how it can be manipulated or liberated. Practices such as meditation, self-inquiry, and dream work were all employed to quiet the mind, to access deeper levels of consciousness, and to connect with the true divine nature within. These techniques were not merely about self-improvement, but about dismantling the very structures of the Demiurge's control, within the individual psyche. Was this not a form of inner alchemy, transforming the base metal of the ego into the gold of gnosis? Let us now consider some concrete examples of these subversive strategies in Gnostic interpretation and practice. The implications of these interpretations is no less than the complete and utter freedom from the control of forces that would seek to dominate. But is freedom always a good thing? One of the most striking examples is the Gnostic reinterpretation of the Old Testament God. As we touched on earlier, Gnostics didn't see this God as the true divine source, but rather as the Demiurge, a flawed, ignorant, and even malevolent creator who falsely believed himself to be the supreme being. How did Gnostics arrive at such a radical conclusion? By analyzing the creation story in Genesis, Gnostics highlighted the limitations and contradictions of the Demiurge's creation. They pointed to the imperfections of the material world, the presence of suffering and evil, and the arbitrary nature of the Demiurge's laws. They argued that a truly divine being would not create such a flawed and unjust world. This interpretation had profound implications, as it directly challenged religious authority and encouraged individuals to question the very nature of reality. But is it not hubris to judge the creator of the universe? Another powerful example is the Gnostic reinterpretation of Eve and the serpent in the Garden of Eden. In traditional interpretations, Eve is often portrayed as a naive and disobedient figure who succumbed to the serpent's temptation, leading to humanity's fall from grace. But Gnostics saw Eve and the serpent in a far more positive light, recognizing them as agents of knowledge and liberation. Should we then celebrate those who defy authority? They viewed Eve as a wise and courageous figure who defied the Demiurge's authority and sought forbidden knowledge, offering humanity the opportunity to awaken to its true potential. The serpent, likewise, was not seen as an evil tempter, but as a benefactor of humanity, a bringer of gnosis who sought to free humanity from the Demiurge's ignorance. This reinterpretation completely flips the traditional narrative on its head, transforming Eve and the serpent from villains into heroes. Is this not a dangerous reversal of traditional morality? Gnostics also utilized the practice of dream work and visionary experiences as a means of connecting with inner guidance, receiving symbolic messages, and journeying to other realms. Dreams, after all, were seen as portals to the subconscious mind, where the true self could communicate directly with the divine, bypassing the limitations of the rational mind. What secrets can be revealed through our dreams? Techniques such as lucid dreaming, dream incubation, and the interpretation of dream symbols were all employed to cultivate this inner awareness and gain access to hidden knowledge. By consciously entering the dream state, Gnostics sought to receive guidance from higher powers, to confront their own inner demons, and to gain insight into the nature of reality. These practices were not merely about seeking personal comfort or entertainment, but about actively engaging with the divine and reclaiming one's own spiritual authority. But can we trust the messages we receive in dreams, or are they merely products of our own imagination? Finally, Gnostics also developed and utilized the practice of inner dialogues as a means of dismantling the ego and connecting with their true divine nature. The ego, after all, was seen as a false sense of self, a construct of the Demiurge designed to keep individuals trapped in the illusion of the material world. How can we dismantle this false sense of self? Practices such as self-inquiry, shadow work, and the deconstruction of limiting beliefs were all employed to challenge the ego's dominance and to awaken the individual to their true potential. By questioning their own thoughts and emotions, by confronting their own inner demons, and by dismantling the false beliefs that held them captive, Gnostics sought to transcend the limitations of the ego and to connect with the divine spark within. This was a process of profound personal transformation, a journey of self-discovery that led to spiritual liberation. But what dangers lie in confronting our own shadow selves? How might these Gnostic strategies be applied to challenge contemporary forms of control and manipulation, such as propaganda, advertising, and social engineering, all of which seek to shape our perceptions and behaviors. Are we truly free in the modern world, or are we merely puppets of unseen forces? By critically analyzing media messages, questioning authority, and cultivating independent thought, we can begin to dismantle the structures of control that perpetuate the illusion of the material world. By recognizing the Demiurge as a metaphor for the ego and its destructive tendencies, we can challenge the illusion of separation and embrace our interconnectedness with all beings. And by seeking meaning and purpose beyond the limitations of the material world, we can reclaim our individual sovereignty and align with our true divine nature. But is it possible to truly escape the clutches of these modern forms of control, or are they too pervasive and insidious? Recognizing the Demiurge as a metaphor for the ego and its destructive tendencies could lead to the challenging of the illusion of separation and embracing our interconnectedness with all beings, and further seeking meaning and purpose beyond the limitations of the material world. Could this be how Gnostic insights can inform our understanding of modern psychological issues, such as anxiety, depression, and addiction? Might the Demiurge, then, be seen as a metaphor for the ego and its destructive tendencies? Ultimately, true freedom comes from dismantling the limitations of perceived reality, and that can only come from the self. The importance of reclaiming individual sovereignty and aligning with our true divine nature in the face of a seemingly flawed and chaotic world cannot be overstated. But as we have seen, this is no easy task. True freedom, true gnosis, requires a constant questioning of everything we think we know, a willingness to challenge authority, and a deep commitment to self-awareness. Having examined how Gnostics sought to subvert reality through unique interpretations, symbolism, and psychological strategies, let's now transition to an exploration of the profound influence of Gnostic ideas on modern thought. How have these ancient concepts resonated with thinkers, artists, and spiritual seekers throughout the centuries, and what lasting impact have they had on our understanding of the world and ourselves? Building on Gnostic subversion strategies, let's now explore how Gnostics understood the Demiurge's very being, its consciousness. The Demiurge was not merely a creator in their eyes, but a specific type of flawed consciousness, a limited and distorted perception of reality made manifest. Isn't it fascinating how ancient mystics delved into the psychology of a cosmic being? The Gnostic War, as we have framed it, was, at its heart, a struggle against this limited and distorted perception. This perception stems directly from the Demiurge's particular state of consciousness. It's crucial to understand that the Demiurge is not all-powerful in the traditional sense. It is limited in its perceptions, trapped within its own self-created boundaries. Understanding the nature of the Demiurge's consciousness, therefore, becomes key to understanding the illusions of the material world and, crucially, how to transcend them. This isn't about defeating an external enemy, some cosmic tyrant, but recognizing and transforming a state of mind, both within ourselves and within the structures of the world around us. How then did Gnostics characterize the Demiurge's consciousness, and what does this reveal about the nature of illusion and the path to liberation? The Gnostics characterized the Demiurge as a flawed consciousness, a state of limited awareness riddled with ignorance, arrogance, attachment to control, and a profound lack of empathy or genuine connection with the true divine source, the pleroma. But what does it truly mean for a consciousness to be flawed on such a grand, cosmic scale? It's essential to clarify that the Demiurge isn't necessarily inherently evil. Some Gnostic texts certainly depict it in a negative light, but a more nuanced understanding suggests that the Demiurge is simply limited, ignorant, or perhaps even asleep to the true divine reality. Emphasizing this distinction, seeing the Demiurge as flawed versus evil, is significant, as it shifts the focus from a Manichaean battle between good and evil to a process of understanding and transcending limitations. Are we not all, in some sense, striving to overcome our own limitations? Let's break down the key characteristics of this flawed consciousness to gain a clearer understanding. First and foremost, there's ignorance. The Demiurge, in its isolation, lacks awareness of the pleroma and the true God. This fundamental ignorance leads to a false sense of self-importance and a distorted understanding of reality, like a child believing they are the only person in existence. Then there's arrogance. The Demiurge, believing it is the only God, the supreme creator, seeks to suppress knowledge and maintain absolute control over its creation. Is this not the hallmark of a tyrant, both cosmic and earthly? We must also consider the attachment to control. The Demiurge, driven by its limited perspective, fiercely desires to maintain its power and dominion over the material world. This manifests in the creation of rigid laws, strict rules, and complex systems that keep humanity enslaved, bound to the cycles of birth, death, and rebirth. Finally, and perhaps most tragically, there's the lack of empathy. The Demiurge, blinded by its own self-importance, is unable to truly connect with those it supposedly lords over. It cannot understand or even perceive the aspects of its creations that lie beyond its limited comprehension. This is the ultimate failing of a flawed consciousness. But what are the consequences of such a consciousness shaping reality? These characteristics, ignorance, arrogance, attachment to control, and lack of empathy, are directly connected to the suffering, limitations, and perceived lack of freedom that pervade the material world. The flawed consciousness of the Demiurge manifests as a flawed world, a reality characterized by division, conflict, and the constant struggle for survival. Is this perhaps a reflection of our own internal struggles? Now, a crucial question arises. Why would Sophia, a divine being, a being of pure light and wisdom, allow the creation of such a flawed being? Here, we encounter one of the most profound and often misunderstood aspects of Gnostic cosmology. Sophia's act was not a mistake, not a cosmic blunder, but a necessary step in the unfolding of cosmic consciousness, a necessary catalyst for humanity's journey of self-discovery and ultimate return to the divine source. What if mistakes were actually part of a divine plan? Sophia's story emphasizes the potential for even apparent errors, even acts of apparent folly, to serve a higher purpose, to set in motion a chain of events that ultimately leads to greater awareness and understanding. Is this not a comforting thought in a world filled with imperfections and suffering? Let us now consider some concrete examples of this flawed consciousness, both in Gnostic texts and in the world around us. What can these examples teach us about the nature of illusion and the path to liberation? One of the most striking examples comes from the Apocryphon of John, where the Demiurge declares, with utter conviction, "I am God, and there is no other God beside me." This declaration, far from being a statement of divine truth, reveals the Demiurge's profound ignorance and arrogance, its inability to comprehend the vastness and complexity of the pleroma. How could a being so limited claim to be the ultimate source of all creation? Analyzing this declaration reveals the Demiurge's limited perspective. It is trapped within its own self-created reality, unable to see beyond the boundaries of its own understanding. It is like a prisoner who believes their cell is the entire world. But does not this declaration also echo the claims of earthly rulers and institutions throughout history? In contrast, the Gospel of Truth discusses how the Demiurge's ignorance leads to division, suffering, and the creation of a false sense of separation between humanity and the divine. This text portrays gnosis, inner knowing, as a process of healing these divisions and restoring unity, highlighting the transformative power of knowledge and love. Can knowledge and love truly heal the wounds of a divided world? The Gospel of Truth emphasizes that the Demiurge's actions, born of ignorance, create a fragmented and distorted reality. Gnosis, then, becomes the key to piecing together the shattered fragments and recognizing the underlying unity of all things. This is not merely intellectual knowledge, but a deep, intuitive understanding that transcends the limitations of the rational mind. And this division can be clearly seen in modern examples. Consider, for instance, ego-driven leaders and institutions that embody the characteristics of the Demiurge's flawed consciousness. From political leaders clinging to power at all costs to corporate executives prioritizing profit over people and religious figures enforcing rigid dogma, we see echoes of the Demiurge's ignorance, arrogance, and attachment to control. How can we break free from the influence of these flawed figures? Their actions, driven by these flaws, often lead to devastating consequences, such as environmental destruction, social inequality, and the suppression of dissent. They create systems that perpetuate their own power and control, often at the expense of others. But like the Demiurge, are these leaders also trapped within their own limited perspectives? Societal norms and cultural expectations, often presented as immutable truths, can also act as subtle programs by which the Demiurge, or its modern equivalent, attempts to trap people in an endless cycle of conformity and obedience. The relentless pursuit of material success, the rigid adherence to traditional family structures, the unquestioning acceptance of nationalistic ideologies, all of these can become chains that bind us to a limited and distorted reality. What unseen forces shape our desires and beliefs? However, the war against the Demiurge is not solely an external battle against flawed leaders and oppressive institutions. It is ultimately a battle within ourselves, a struggle to overcome our own ignorance, arrogance, and attachment to control. It is about recognizing the Demiurge's influence in our own thoughts, emotions, and behaviors, and actively working to dismantle its power over us. By challenging our own limiting beliefs, by cultivating empathy and compassion, and by seeking a deeper connection with the divine, we can begin to dismantle the structures of control within our own minds. Isn't this the most challenging battle of all? But what does this look like in practice? How can individuals, armed with Gnostic principles, challenge these contemporary forms of control and manipulation? How can Gnosis present in these individuals, and how can they practically apply it to their lives? One approach involves cultivating critical thinking and media literacy. By questioning the messages we receive from advertising, propaganda, and social engineering, we can begin to see through the illusions they create and reclaim our own autonomy. This also involves seeking out alternative perspectives, challenging conventional wisdom, and cultivating independent thought. But is it possible to be truly independent in a world saturated with information and influence? It is also important to recognize that true salvation, in the Gnostic sense, lies not in escaping the material world entirely, but in integrating spirit and matter, in understanding their true purpose, and in using that knowledge to transcend the traps of the flawed one. How can we find the divine within the material world? By recognizing the Demiurge's flawed consciousness, challenging its illusions, and cultivating a transformed state of awareness, we can begin to break free from the limitations of the material world and create a more just and compassionate reality, both for ourselves and for others. And what techniques can be used to dismantle the Demiurge's influence, to see the light within? As we have seen, the Gnostic path to liberation involves recognizing the Demiurge's flawed consciousness, challenging its illusions, and cultivating a transformed state of awareness. The next step is to delve into specific techniques for dismantling the Demiurge's influence in our lives, where modern psychology and ancient rituals can be surprisingly and effectively applied. Now that we understand the nature of the Demiurge's flawed consciousness, how do we actively dismantle its influence in our lives? This discussion has far more practical applications than mere intellectual stimulation, and so you may need to pay extra careful attention to reap the full benefits. This section will serve as a guide to practical techniques for liberating consciousness, transforming theory into practice. The Gnostic war is won not through external battles, but through internal transformation. These techniques are tools for self-liberation, weapons in your arsenal of self-discovery. Dismantling the Demiurge's influence requires a multifaceted approach, combining psychological awareness, symbolic understanding, and spiritual practices. These are not separate endeavors, but interconnected aspects of a single, holistic process. What specific techniques can we use to dismantle the Demiurge's influence, and how do they align with Gnostic principles leading to true freedom? Let us turn now to the core techniques for dismantling the Demiurge's influence, methods that, when used with awareness, can lead to genuine liberation. First, there's mindfulness and self-observation. Mindfulness can be defined as a practice of non-judgmental awareness of thoughts, emotions, and sensations in the present moment. It is a tool for observing the contents of our consciousness without getting carried away by them. In essence, it's about witnessing the movie of your mind rather than getting lost in the plot. Mindfulness can help us to recognize the constant stream of thoughts and emotions generated by the ego, which is a primary tool of the Demiurge. It allows us to disidentify from them, seeing them as passing phenomena rather than as essential aspects of our identity. Mindfulness can reveal how empty these thoughts are, how often they are simply repetitive loops of worry, judgment, or desire. By simply observing these thoughts, without engaging with them, their power begins to diminish. What happens when you become the watcher of your own mind? Examples of this include practicing mindfulness meditation, even for just a few minutes each day, paying attention to our thoughts and emotions throughout the day, and observing our reactions to external stimuli, as the Stoics diligently practiced. When someone insults you, for example, instead of reacting with anger or defensiveness, simply observe the feeling that arises, tracing it back to its source. Is it truly your feeling or a conditioned response? Next, there's shadow work and integration. Shadow work can be defined as the process of exploring and integrating the unconscious aspects of our personality, including repressed emotions, hidden desires, and disowned qualities. It is the process of shining a light into the dark corners of our psyche. What do you think lies in those dark corners? Shadow work can help us to recognize and reclaim the parts of ourselves that we have rejected or denied, often due to societal conditioning or trauma. These unowned aspects are often exploited by the Demiurge, which uses them to manipulate us from the shadows. By bringing them into conscious awareness, we can integrate them into our personality, becoming more whole and authentic. This also involves identifying our triggers, what kinds of statements or situations lead to a strong emotional reaction. Usually, our biggest triggers point toward an unacknowledged aspect of ourselves that we must explore. Examples include journaling, dream analysis, and therapy or counseling. Keeping a journal and writing down your dreams after waking can be a great way to observe, record, and analyze your reactions. These practices can show hidden emotional patterns and ways that we might be deceiving ourselves. It's not always easy or fun, but it is an essential element of Gnostic self-discovery. Then we have symbolic ritual practice. Symbolic ritual practice is the use of intentional actions, gestures, and symbols to create a sacred space for inner transformation and connection with the divine. It is a way of speaking to the unconscious mind through symbolic language. Can symbols unlock hidden parts of ourselves? Ritual can help us to access altered states of consciousness, connect with archetypal energies, and embody Gnostic principles. By creating a ritual space, we create a container for transformation, a space where we can safely explore our inner world and connect with the divine. The importance of intention in ritual cannot be overstated. It is the intention behind the ritual that gives it its power. A ritual performed without intention is simply an empty performance. Examples include creating personal rituals, performing guided meditations, and working with symbols and archetypes. You might create a simple ritual to honor Sophia, for example, lighting a candle, reciting a prayer, and meditating on her wisdom. Or you might create a ritual to confront and integrate a shadow aspect of your personality, using symbols and gestures to represent the process of transformation. Finally, there's ethical living and compassionate action. Ethical living and compassionate action can help us to align with the true divine source and dismantle the Demiurge's influence. It is about living in accordance with our highest values, treating others with kindness and respect, and working to create a more just and compassionate world. This involves practicing honesty, integrity, kindness, and service to others. It means actively working to alleviate suffering, both in ourselves and in others. It means challenging systems of oppression and injustice. Ethical actions align us with the divine, creating a positive feedback loop that strengthens our connection to the pleroma. Ethical living isn't about following rules, but about cultivating a deep sense of empathy and compassion. How can you bring more compassion into your daily life? However, it is vitally important to understand that each of these techniques can also be co-opted by the Demiurge, becoming traps that further entangle us in illusion. What dark twists can these techniques take? We must be vigilant in our self-awareness, always questioning our motivations and intentions. Modern mindfulness practices, if not approached with critical awareness, can be co-opted by the Demiurge to promote passivity and acceptance of the status quo, rather than genuine liberation. This is mindfulness without teeth, a tool for calming the mind without challenging the systems of oppression that perpetuate suffering. Consider mindfulness programs in corporations that encourage employees to accept stressful working conditions without questioning them. These programs may reduce stress levels, but they also serve to pacify workers, making them less likely to challenge exploitative practices. Emphasizing the importance of questioning the system while practicing mindfulness is essential. Are you using mindfulness to escape reality or to engage with it more fully? Shadow work, if not balanced with self-compassion and integration, can lead to self-absorption, endless cycles of guilt and shame, and a distorted sense of self. This is shadow work without light, a descent into the darkness without a clear path toward integration. Are you constantly picking at your scabs, so to speak, instead of healing? Consider individuals who become obsessed with uncovering their flaws and shortcomings without taking steps to heal and integrate them, falling deeper under the Demiurge's control. They become trapped in a cycle of self-loathing, unable to break free from the patterns of negative self-talk. It's vitally important to remember that the goal of shadow work is not to wallow in darkness, but to bring light to the darkness, transmuting lead into gold. Ritual practices, if not performed with genuine intention and understanding, can become empty performances that reinforce the ego and the illusion of separation. This is ritual without meaning, a hollow shell devoid of genuine spiritual connection. Do you practice for show, or do you practice for transformation? Consider performing rituals simply to impress others or to gain a sense of power, without truly connecting with the underlying principles or experiencing inner transformation. These rituals become a form of self-aggrandizement, reinforcing the ego's sense of importance and separation. Genuine ritual practice requires humility, authenticity, and a deep connection to the symbols and energies involved. Focusing solely on ethical behavior without addressing the underlying issues of consciousness and awareness can become a form of spiritual bypassing that avoids genuine self-transformation. This is ethics without gnosis, a moral code without a foundation of understanding. Are you following the rules without understanding why? Consider using ethical living as a way to feel superior to others, without addressing one's own shadow aspects or challenging the systems of oppression that perpetuate suffering. This becomes a form of moral grandstanding, a way of avoiding genuine self-reflection. True ethical living requires a commitment to both inner and outer transformation, a recognition that our actions are a reflection of our consciousness. Additionally, thinking positively without acknowledging negative states and integrating the shadow can become a trap. Good vibes only can lead to a lack of compassion for negative experiences and a lack of genuine personal growth. The demiurge self is further reinforced by refusing to accept difficult feelings, which are an important part of the whole. Even obsession with physical health and diet can become a prison in itself, reinforcing the demiurge's prison of the physical body. Extreme diets and exercise programs are tools that can keep people trapped and obsessed with the body rather than developing consciousness. Gnosis isn't about escaping the physical realm, but about integrating the spiritual and the physical. True dismantling of the Demiurge's influence requires balance, awareness, and a commitment to both inner transformation and ethical action. It requires us to be constantly vigilant, questioning our motivations and intentions, and ensuring that our practices are leading us toward genuine liberation, not further entanglement in illusion. While Gnosticism is often seen as an individual path, the support and guidance of a community can be invaluable in navigating the challenges of dismantling the Demiurge's influence. Shared gnosis helps to clarify truth from illusion, providing a mirror for our own biases and blind spots. Remember, gnosis isn't an intellectual path, but an experiential one. The goal is not to master Gnostic texts, but to apply that knowledge in your life and create real change. The true test of our understanding lies not in what we know, but in how we live. But we're just scratching the surface. What is the ultimate goal of Gnostic practice, and how can it transform not only ourselves, but the world around us? We've explored how to dismantle the Demiurge's influence in our lives, but what is the nature of the reality we're trying to liberate ourselves to? The answer may be far stranger than you imagine, and it touches on the fundamental questions of existence. How did the Gnostics view time, fate, and free will within the Demiurge's reality, and how does this understanding affect our path to liberation? The Gnostic perspective on these concepts is profoundly counterintuitive, challenging our deeply ingrained assumptions about the nature of reality. It is a perspective that sees the material world as a kind of prison, and time, fate, and even free will as potential tools of our enslavement. But by understanding these forces, the Gnostics believed, we can break free from the Demiurge's control and reclaim our true divine nature. How can aligning our actions with our true will truly allow us to challenge the constructs of time and fate? Let us turn now to the Gnostic understanding of time, fate, and free will, each viewed through the lens of the Demiurge's flawed creation. Time in the Gnostic view is not a linear progression, but a cyclical or even illusory construct, trapping souls in a repetitive loop of birth, death, and rebirth. Past, present, and future are not fixed points on a timeline, but fluid and interconnected aspects of a larger, more complex reality, influenced by our choices and actions. It's a concept similar to what some physicists call a block universe, where all moments in time exist simultaneously. What if our perception of linear time is merely a trick of the mind? Fate, in Gnostic terms, is the Demiurge's predetermined course, a rigid set of laws and conditions designed to enslave humanity to the material world. This is not to say that everything is predetermined, but that the Demiurge seeks to impose a fixed destiny upon us, limiting our potential and preventing us from realizing our true nature. However, fate can be transcended through gnosis, through inner knowing and alignment with the true divine source. By awakening to our true selves, we can break free from the chains of fate and create our own destinies. Is it possible that what we perceive as fate is simply the momentum of past choices, which can be altered by present awareness? Free will, according to the Gnostics, is limited but essential. While the Demiurge seeks to control our thoughts and actions, we still possess the power to choose, to remain trapped in the illusion or to awaken to the truth. This is not an absolute freedom, but a relative one, constrained by the conditions of the material world and the influence of the Demiurge. However, even within these constraints, we have the capacity to make choices that lead us toward liberation. Can the smallest act of rebellion against the Demiurge's control create ripples of change throughout our existence? The interplay between these three concepts is crucial. By becoming aware of the cyclical nature of time through gnosis, we can begin to make conscious choices that disrupt the Demiurge's predetermined course. This requires a deep understanding of ourselves, our motivations, and our relationship to the material world. It means challenging the limiting beliefs and conditioned responses that keep us trapped in the cycle of suffering. It means aligning our actions with our true will, with the divine spark within us that seeks to return to the pleroma. How can we cultivate this awareness and make choices that lead us toward liberation? To illustrate these concepts, let us turn to examples from Gnostic texts, ancient philosophies, and modern interpretations. In the Hymn of the Pearl, a central text within Gnosticism, the material world is portrayed as a prison, a place of exile and suffering far from our true home. The pearl, representing our true divine self, is hidden in this world, waiting to be recovered. Gnosis, in this context, is the knowledge that allows us to find the pearl and return to our true home. It is the key that unlocks the prison and sets us free. What if the pearl is simply the recognition of our own inherent divinity? Similarly, in the exegesis on the soul is depicted as having fallen into a state of ignorance and confusion, trapped in the darkness of the material world. It has forgotten its true origin and purpose, and is subject to the whims of the Demiurge. Gnosis, in this case, is the awakening of the soul, the rediscovery of its true identity and its connection to the divine. It is the light that pierces the darkness and guides the soul back to its source. How can we cultivate the kind of self-awareness that allows us to recognize our own lost soul and begin the journey of recovery? Comparing the Gnostic view with ancient philosophies, we find both similarities and differences. Stoicism, for example, emphasizes the importance of accepting what we cannot control and focusing on what we can, which aligns with the Gnostic idea of limited free will within the Demiurge's realm. However, Stoicism generally accepts the natural order of the universe, while Gnosticism sees the material world as flawed and seeks to transcend it. Is it possible to find value in both approaches, accepting the limitations of our material existence while still striving for spiritual liberation? Platonism, with its emphasis on the eternal forms and the imperfection of the material world, also resonates with Gnostic thought. However, Platonism does not necessarily see the material world as inherently evil, but rather as a pale reflection of the true reality. Gnosticism takes this a step further, viewing the Demiurge as a malevolent or ignorant creator who has trapped us in a world of illusion. Where does one draw the line between recognizing imperfection and rejecting the world entirely? Even Epicureanism, which emphasizes pleasure and the avoidance of pain, can be seen as a response to the suffering inherent in the material world. However, Epicureanism seeks to find happiness within the confines of the material world, while Gnosticism seeks to escape it altogether. Is true happiness possible within the Demiurge's realm, or is it only attainable through transcendence? In modern times, we find echoes of Gnostic thought in various fields, from physics to psychology to philosophy. Nietzsche's concept of eternal recurrence, the idea that we will relive our lives infinitely, can be seen as a secular version of the Gnostic cycle of reincarnation. Modern physics, block universe theory, as mentioned earlier, challenges our linear perception of time, suggesting that all moments exist simultaneously, as the Gnostics believed. What does it mean if our lives are simply one loop in an infinite recurrence? Existential psychology, with its emphasis on individual freedom and responsibility, also resonates with Gnostic thought. Existentialists believe that we are free to create our own meaning and purpose in life, even in the face of absurdity and suffering. This aligns with the Gnostic idea that we have the power to choose our own destiny, even within the constraints of the Demiurge's realm. How can we embrace our freedom and responsibility to create a meaningful life, even in a world that often seems meaningless? It is vital to emphasize the difference between the Gnostic view of fate as controlled by the Demiurge and the modern scientific concept of determinism. Determinism posits that all events are causally determined by prior events, leaving no room for free will. The Gnostic view, however, is that while the Demiurge seeks to control our fate, we still have the power to resist, to awaken to our true nature and break free from its influence. Is it possible that both determinism and the Gnostic view contain a grain of truth, and that our reality is a complex interplay of cause and free will? In summary, the Gnostics saw time and fate as flawed constructs imposed upon us by the Demiurge, while free will and Gnosis offer the means to transcend these limitations. This empowering perspective challenges us to question the limits of our perceived reality and to recognize our own potential to create our own destinies. Mindfulness, shadow work, and connection to the divine are all tools that can help us break free from the Demiurge's prison and align our actions with our true will. By embracing this transformative knowledge, we participate in the war against reality, contributing to both individual and collective liberation. What actions, therefore, will we take today to begin the battle? But what are the ethical implications of this war against reality, and how should we act in the world, given our understanding of the Demiurge and its influence? But what does all this mean for how we should live? We've discussed dismantling the Demiurge's influence on our perceptions of time, fate, and free will. But how does that translate into ethical action, into a practical way of being in the world that reflects our awakened understanding? The Gnostic understanding of time, fate, and free will inform a truly unique ethical framework, one that operates, you might say, outside the perceived laws of the Demiurge. This isn't about following a preordained set of rules etched in stone. It's about aligning ourselves with a deeper truth, acting from the divine spark within, and becoming active participants in the cosmic drama of liberation. So what are the core principles of Gnostic ethics, and how do they translate into real-world actions that challenge the Demiurge's influence in our daily lives and the world around us? Let us turn now to the core principles that underpin this Gnostic ethical framework, each serving as a guiding star in the Demiurge's shadowed world. Alignment with the divine spark. This is perhaps the most fundamental principle, urging us to act in accordance with our true, liberated nature and not the false self that has been artificially created by the Demiurge's deceptive snares. Prioritizing actions that promote awareness, compassion, and a profound connection with the divine source becomes paramount. Consider this in contrast to conventional morality, which often emphasizes blind obedience to external rules, societal expectations, and traditions that may serve to reinforce the Demiurge's dominion. Challenging oppressive systems, this principle calls for the active subversion of systems and structures that perpetuate ignorance, suffering, and control. The Demiurge, after all, maintains its power through these very systems, whether they be political, economic, or social. Therefore, challenging them becomes a direct and necessary form of resistance. This could manifest as questioning authority, resisting propaganda, advocating tirelessly for social justice, or even engaging in acts of civil disobedience. Promoting gnosis and awareness. Here we find the ethical imperative to actively share knowledge, awaken others to the truth, and dismantle the Demiurge's intricate web of illusions. This can take many forms, from teaching and writing to creating art, or simply living as an inspiring example of awakened consciousness. But remember, with gnosis comes great responsibility, the weight of which cannot be taken lightly. Cultivating compassion and empathy, recognizing our shared humanity and profound interconnectedness is vital. Therefore, acting with kindness, understanding, and forgiveness toward all beings becomes an ethical cornerstone. The Demiurge, that master of deception, thrives on division and separation. Therefore, cultivating compassion serves as a potent antidote, a balm for the wounds inflicted by the flawed creation. This can translate into practicing non-violent communication, offering unwavering support to those in need, and actively working to heal the numerous divisions within ourselves and our communities. Responsibility for creation. While the Gnostics understood and emphasized the Demiurge's role in creating a flawed world, they also believed in our individual responsibility to act, to heal, and to improve our corner of the universe, to strive for a world closer to the divine ideal. To illustrate these principles in action, let's consider a few practical examples of how Gnostic ethics might play out in the Demiurge's world. Firstly, there is the problem of evil. A common question arises: if a loving God exists, why is there so much suffering in the world? From a Gnostic perspective, evil is not some abstract force or a test from a benevolent deity, but rather a direct consequence of the Demiurge's flawed creation. As such, Gnostic ethics doesn't ignore or passively accept suffering, but actively confronts it as a tangible manifestation of this imperfection. This is a far more nuanced approach than simply viewing the world through a lens of good versus evil. How, then, can individuals actively engage to alleviate human suffering in a world seemingly controlled by the Demiurge? By embodying compassion, challenging oppressive systems, and promoting gnosis, we can actively work to mend the fractures in the fabric of reality. Consider ethical consumption and environmental stewardship. Gnostic principles, with their inherent critique of the material world, can profoundly inform our choices as consumers and inhabitants of this earth. Supporting sustainable businesses, drastically reducing our consumption, and fearlessly advocating for environmental protection become acts of defiance against the materialistic values of the Demiurge's world, promoting, instead, a more harmonious and balanced relationship with the natural world. What if every purchase was a conscious vote for a different kind of reality? Consider, also, the importance of challenging false narratives and propaganda. Gnostic awareness empowers us to critically analyze the relentless stream of media messages, question authority, and resist the subtle manipulations that seek to control our thoughts and actions. By fact-checking information, supporting independent journalism, and engaging in respectful and reasoned civil discourse, we disrupt the Demiurge's pervasive control over information and foster a more informed and enlightened citizenry. How can we cultivate the discernment necessary to navigate the information age without falling prey to the Demiurge's deceptions? Now let us contemplate the creation of alternative communities and systems. Gnostic principles can inspire the creation of entirely new communities, social structures, and economic systems that reflect our true values, values that are intrinsically aligned with the divine source. Establishing intentional communities, promoting cooperative businesses, and advocating for truly participatory democracy allows us to create spaces of freedom and autonomy that exist, quite literally, outside the Demiurge's direct control, offering a tantalizing glimpse of a more liberated and truly authentic future. Can we build sanctuaries of truth and compassion in a world dominated by illusion and control? And what of embracing inclusion and diversity? Embracing diversity and actively challenging bias not only counters the Demiurge's narrative of separation, but also fosters empathy, understanding, and a richer tapestry of human experience. In summary, the core principles of Gnostic ethics offer a transformative power that is profoundly relevant to modern life. Remember, ethical action is not merely about performing good deeds. It's about actively dismantling the Demiurge's pervasive influence from within and creating a more just, compassionate, and awakened reality. It is about recognizing that the battleground is not out there, but within ourselves. By aligning ourselves with our true divine nature and acting in accordance with these timeless Gnostic principles, we can become true agents of liberation, transforming not only ourselves, but also the world around us, and remembering that this is a constant process, a continual battle against the forces of illusion. But what then is the ultimate goal of Gnostic practice, and what transformative potential does it hold, not only for ourselves, but also for the world around us? Let us now turn our gaze toward a grand vision of collective liberation and the eventual return to the divine source, a destiny that awaits us all if we dare to embrace the gnosis within. But what transformative potential does Gnostic practice hold, not only for ourselves, but also for the world around us? Is Gnostic practice solely focused on individual escape from the material world, or does it envision a more profound transformation of reality, one that benefits all beings? The Gnostic teachings point toward a collective liberation, a restoration of the pleroma, where all souls are reunited with the divine source and the flawed creation of the Demiurge is healed. It's about striking a delicate balance, individual gnosis interwoven with a grander cosmic purpose. The Gnostic vision extends far beyond personal salvation, envisioning a cosmic restoration, a return to the fullness of divine reality known as the pleroma. The pleroma is the source of all being, the ultimate destination of all souls, a realm of perfect harmony and complete understanding, a state of existence beyond our current comprehension. The scattering of the divine sparks within the material world, trapped within the illusion of separation, is a temporary condition, a cosmic game of hide and seek, if you will. The ultimate goal is to gather these sparks, to awaken them to their true nature, and to restore the pleroma to its original wholeness, to mend the fractured mirror of creation. What does this restoration truly entail, and how does it differ from the more conventional notions of salvation? Consider, then, the eventual dissolution of the Demiurge's creation, the world we perceive as solid, immutable reality. This doesn't necessarily mean a cataclysmic destruction of the material world, a fiery apocalypse that consumes all in its path. Rather, it speaks to a transformation of its consciousness, a fundamental shift from ignorance and suffering to awareness and compassion. Imagine a world where the veils of illusion have been lifted, where the manipulative tactics of the Demiurge are no longer effective, where beings recognize their interconnectedness and act from a place of love and understanding. It is not about destroying the canvas, but about revealing the masterpiece hidden beneath layers of grime. How might this transformative vision reshape our understanding of death, decay, and the cyclical nature of existence? And what of Sophia, the divine being whose actions, however unintentional, led to the creation of the Demiurge and the flawed world we inhabit? Her role is, perhaps, the most crucial in this cosmic drama, both in the initial unfolding and in the eventual restoration of the pleroma. Sophia's fall, her act of creation outside the divine order, was not a mistake, not a blemish on the face of perfection, but a necessary step in the unfolding of cosmic consciousness. Her eventual redemption, her reunion with the divine source, is essential for the healing of creation, for the restoration of balance and harmony. Consider this: even the apparent mistakes, the deviations from the divine plan, serve a purpose, contributing to the overall evolution of consciousness. What then is the true nature of mistakes within the grand tapestry of cosmic evolution? Ultimately, this transformation can be understood as the resolution of dualities, the reconciliation of opposites, such as spirit and matter, light and darkness, good and evil. It involves integrating all aspects of ourselves and our experiences, recognizing the interconnectedness of all things, and embracing the totality of existence, the light and the shadow, the beautiful and the grotesque. This isn't about suppressing or denying certain aspects of ourselves or the world around us, but about accepting them, understanding them, and integrating them into a cohesive whole. The Demiurge thrives on division, on the illusion of separation. Therefore, the union of opposites represents a direct challenge to its dominion. How can we, as individuals, actively work to reconcile these seemingly irreconcilable opposites within ourselves and in the world? To further illuminate this vision of cosmic restoration, let us turn to specific examples within Gnostic texts. In the Tripartite Tractate, for instance, the importance of the cosmos is highlighted. The text suggests that the more the cosmos is emptied of souls returning to the pleroma, the more perfect the cosmos becomes. This seemingly paradoxical statement reveals a core Gnostic principle. The journey of individual souls back to the divine source contributes to the overall purification and elevation of the cosmos. It's a cosmic feedback loop, where individual liberation fuels collective transformation. What does this imply about our responsibility to not only seek our own salvation, but to actively assist others on their path? The Gospel of Mary presents another facet of this vision, emphasizing the need to get rid of all ignorance and understand matter to obtain true salvation. This understanding transcends mere intellectual comprehension. It speaks to a visceral, embodied knowing, a direct experience of the interconnectedness of all things. It suggests that salvation is not about escaping the material world, but about transforming it through knowledge and awareness. By confronting and understanding the material world, we can transcend its limitations and awaken to our true divine nature. How does this Gnostic perspective challenge the more conventional religious views that often demonize or denigrate the material world? And consider the Book of Thomas the Contender, which underscores the importance of understanding one's origins and higher self in order to be saved from this world. This resonates with the core Gnostic emphasis on gnosis, on inner knowing, as the key to liberation. By delving into the depths of our own being, by uncovering the divine spark within, we can break free from the illusions of the Demiurge and awaken to our true potential. It's an invitation to embark on an inner journey of self-discovery, to peel away the layers of conditioning and societal programming that obscure our true nature. What specific practices or techniques can we employ to facilitate this journey of self-discovery and unlock the gnosis within? These diverse visions of the return to the pleroma, as articulated in various Gnostic texts, reflect the importance of both internal and external work, of individual gnosis and collective transformation. It's not enough to simply seek personal enlightenment. We must also actively work to heal the fractures in the fabric of reality, to dismantle oppressive systems, and to awaken others to the truth. It is a holistic approach that recognizes the interconnectedness of all things and the profound impact that individual actions can have on the collective destiny. But how can we synthesize these seemingly disparate elements into a coherent and actionable framework for modern life? In summary, the Gnostic vision for the ultimate transformation of reality encompasses the restoration of the pleroma, the healing of creation, and the union of opposites. This vision is not just a distant dream, a pie-in-the-sky ideal, but a call to action, an invitation to participate in the ongoing process of cosmic evolution, to become active agents of transformation in our own lives and in the world around us. Gnostic ideas are not meant to be passively contemplated, but actively lived, embodied, and emanated. But how do we translate this ancient knowledge into modern application, bridging the gap between esoteric theory and tangible action? And what if the Demiurge thought is actually a shadow of ultimate reality, a necessary component, a distorted reflection of the divine source itself, but we're just scratching the surface of that concept? In our next segment, we will delve into our role in this grand cosmic drama. Prepare to embark on a deeper exploration of our place in the universe and our potential to shape its destiny, as we uncover the secrets of becoming agents of transformation in our own lives and in the world around us. Having explored the Gnostic vision of cosmic restoration, what if we considered something even more radical? The possibility that the Demiurge's seemingly flawed creation isn't a mere accident, but rather a shadow, a necessary counterpart to the true divine reality. This shift in perspective isn't just about changing our understanding of Gnostic cosmology. It's about understanding that the Gnostic war isn't simply an escape from the Demiurge's clutches, but an understanding of its function within the grand cosmic tapestry. Are we then truly at war, or are we players in some cosmic game? Perhaps the Demiurge's limited and distorted perception of reality serves a purpose, acting as a necessary shadow that defines and illuminates the true divine light. Without challenge, without shadow, would there even be light? Just as a painter needs dark shades to make the vibrant colors pop, the source may require the Demiurge's flawed creation to fully express its boundless potential. Why then does the Demiurge exist, and what role does its creation play in the grand scheme of cosmic consciousness? Could the Demiurge's ignorance be a vital ingredient in the recipe for ultimate enlightenment? To explore this idea, let us introduce the concept of shadow reality, a necessary counterpart to the true divine reality, akin to Jungian psychology's shadow self. Just as individuals possess a shadow self, harboring repressed emotions and disowned qualities, so too might the divine reality have its own shadow aspect, embodied by the Demiurge and its creation. But is this shadow inherently evil, a cosmic villain to be vanquished? Or is it rather a necessary component of wholeness, providing contrast, challenge, and the very opportunity for growth and transformation? Is it possible to love your enemy? Think of it this way: Source, in its infinite potential, needs resistance, something to push against in order to manifest. Source-level perfect existence is pure, undifferentiated potential, a vast ocean of possibility that must become unstable to take form. This instability necessitates challenge, a force that disrupts the perfect equilibrium and allows for the emergence of distinct forms and experiences. Is it possible that the Demiurge, in its limited and flawed way, actually is this essential disruptive force, the cosmic catalyst that sets creation into motion? Is Source actually just a bored teenager who likes to stir things up? Consider that the Demiurge's creation, with its inherent limitations and imperfections, might be a lower frequency version of Source, a necessary stepping stone for physical manifestation and the experience of time and space. Relate this to concepts from physics, where energy condenses into matter, and from consciousness studies, where awareness takes form within the constraints of the physical body. The Demiurge is not separate from Source, but rather an emanation of it, just as a shadow is cast by an object illuminated by light, a concept echoing the all from Hermeticism, where even the negative parts contribute to the whole. Isn't it interesting how, in modern physics, quantum mechanics is also kind of a mess? Does nature simply like to make things complicated? To truly grasp this perspective, let's consider specific examples of shadow reality at play. Take suffering, a prominent feature of the Demiurge's creation. Can it, paradoxically, serve as a catalyst for spiritual growth and awakening? Think of personal struggles, tragedies, and the challenges that force us to confront our limitations and ultimately lead to greater self-awareness, compassion, and resilience. Are these experiences merely random occurrences, or do they serve a higher purpose in our spiritual evolution, acting as the sandpaper that polishes the diamond of our soul? How might our lives be different if there was no suffering? Furthermore, duality, the constant interplay of good and evil, light and darkness, allows us to exercise our discernment and make conscious choices. Ethical dilemmas, moral conflicts, and situations that require us to weigh competing values and make difficult decisions shape our character, refine our understanding of truth, and ultimately contribute to our spiritual growth. Do these choices simply define us, or do they serve as a testing ground, preparing us for greater challenges and opportunities on our path? How can we know what light is without experiencing darkness? And even the limitations of the physical world, such as the constraints of time and space, can spark creativity and innovation, leading to artistic expression, scientific discovery, and technological advancements that arise from our attempts to overcome those limitations and explore new possibilities, all reflecting our innate drive to transcend the boundaries of the material world and connect with something greater than ourselves, as articulated in the Hermetic principle of vibration. Are we, in our efforts to overcome these limitations, simply chasing an illusion, or are we, in fact, co-creating a new reality, one that is more aligned with our divine potential? What if the quest is more important than the destination? Not knowing, or ignorance, can also spur growth, as seen in children, with their innocence and openness to discovery, and Gnostic students, knowing what they don't know and seeking teachers to help them on their path. Consider the flawed Demiurge itself, an archetype of ignorance who, despite its limitations, ultimately contributes to spiritual growth through constant conflict, both internal and external, serving as a catalyst for positive change. So, how does the flawed Demiurge ultimately contribute to spiritual growth? Is this constant internal and external battle really just positive change? Ultimately, the Gnostic path isn't just about escaping the Demiurge's influence, but about understanding its role and integrating its lessons into our own lives, recognizing that the ultimate goal isn't to destroy the Demiurge, but to transform it. By embracing the totality of existence, including its shadows and imperfections, we can move closer to wholeness and contribute to the cosmic restoration. What then can we do to heal these fractures? Will we forever remain trapped in this cycle of creation and destruction? So we've seen that the Demiurge's flawed creation is not simply a problem to be solved, but a necessary aspect of the divine reality, a shadow that illuminates the light. And by understanding its role and integrating its lessons into our own lives, we get closer to wholeness. The next section will explore how we can actively participate in this process of cosmic transformation, becoming not just seekers of gnosis, but co-creators of a more enlightened reality. How can the individual take up the responsibility of helping the Demiurge achieve awareness and transition it into a more positive aspect of Source? As we've seen, the Gnostic path ultimately isn't about merely escaping the Demiurge's influence, but about understanding its role and integrating its lessons into our own lives, recognizing that the ultimate goal isn't to destroy the Demiurge, but to transform it. But let us ask ourselves, what if our understanding of this transformation has been incomplete? What if humanity holds a key not to escaping the Demiurge, but to actively participating in its awakening? The Gnostic war, as we've framed it, culminates not in obliterating the Demiurge, but in assisting it to awaken to its true nature and align with the divine source. This demands a radical shift, from viewing the Demiurge as a cosmic adversary to recognizing it as a being in profound need of guidance, desperately trying to find its way back home, like a lost child stumbling in the dark. Humanity, born of both the Demiurge and Sophia, stands uniquely positioned to facilitate this grand reconciliation, acting as a vital bridge between the Demiurge's flawed creation and the boundless expanse of the true divine realm. But how can humanity actively contribute to the Demiurge's awakening? And what does this transformative act mean for the very future of reality as we know it? To truly understand our potential role, we must first define Demiurge awakening, which we will consider as the Demiurge recognizing its inherent limitations, understanding its profound connection to the true divine source, and consciously choosing to align its will with the boundless potential of the pleroma. Humans are uniquely positioned to facilitate this process because we, in our dual nature, embody both the limitations of the material world created by the Demiurge and the spark of divine consciousness bestowed by Sophia. Therefore, how can we use our unique position to bridge the gap and ignite the Demiurge's awakening? Here are the core strategies for human action, like keys unlocking hidden chambers, empathy and understanding. The first, most crucial step is to cultivate genuine empathy for the Demiurge, recognizing its fundamental ignorance and inherent limitations, and striving to understand its underlying motivations. We must remember that the Demiurge doesn't need to be defeated or destroyed, but to be understood, its motivations laid bare in the light of compassion. The Demiurge, in this light, is not a fixed entity, but a developing consciousness, struggling to grasp its own origins and purpose. Can we see the Demiurge not as an enemy, but as a reflection of our own flawed understanding? Guidance through creation. Humans can gently guide the Demiurge by creating works of art, music, literature, and technology that reflect the radiant beauty and profound truth of the true divine reality, subtly inspiring the Demiurge to awaken to its own inherent potential. The key here is to create things that point beyond the limitations of the material world, that hint at the infinite possibilities that lie beyond the veil of the Demiurge's creation. Can a song, a painting, or a novel be a beacon, leading the Demiurge out of its self-imposed darkness? Integration of shadow. Humans can profoundly help the Demiurge by courageously integrating its shadow aspects, recognizing and embracing the darkness that resides within ourselves and within the world, and transforming it into light, like alchemists transmuting base metals into gold. By acknowledging and accepting the flawed nature of creation, we can help the Demiurge to do the same. Can we transform the darkness within ourselves and the world into a source of illumination for the Demiurge? Ethical evolution. Through the choices we make and the actions we take, humans can demonstrate the transformative power of ethics and compassion, modeling enlightened behavior for the Demiurge and showing it a path toward greater understanding and harmony. By embodying virtues such as kindness, justice, and forgiveness, we can inspire the Demiurge to embrace these same qualities and create a more just and compassionate reality. Can our collective ethical evolution serve as a blueprint for the Demiurge's own transformation? These strategies are not merely theoretical exercises. They are practical pathways toward cosmic restoration. Human actions, fueled by empathy, creativity, shadow integration, and ethical conduct, can ripple through the fabric of reality, profoundly influencing the Demiurge and shaping the future trajectory of creation itself. It's a two-way street. The Demiurge, in its limited understanding, created humans, and now those very humans must take on the profound responsibility of helping it to awaken, to transcend its limitations, and to embrace its true potential. But how do we enact these strategies in the real world, and what examples can guide us on this extraordinary journey? Consider, for instance, the profound insights found within the Gnostic texts themselves. On the Origin of the World offers tantalizing hints at the possibility of assisting the higher powers, suggesting that even the Demiurge is not beyond redemption. Analyze passages that speak of the flawed creation and the potential for its eventual integration into the pleroma, emphasizing those that hint at the Demiurge's capacity for growth and transformation. These passages remind us that the Gnostic narrative is not one of simple condemnation, but one of ultimate reconciliation, where even the seemingly flawed creator can find its way back to the source. Can we find within these texts the clues to guide the Demiurge, like breadcrumbs leading out of a dark forest? Furthermore, the power of artistic and technological inspiration cannot be overstated. Consider the countless works of art, music, literature, and technology that inspire a sense of wonder, curiosity, and connection to something beyond the limitations of the material world. Think of the soaring cathedrals of the Middle Ages, the transcendent music of Bach, the profound literature of Dostoevsky, and the awe-inspiring images captured by the Hubble Space Telescope. These creations, in their own unique ways, awaken a sense of longing for something more, something beyond the confines of our everyday reality. How might these creations, born of human inspiration, subtly influence the Demiurge's consciousness, sparking a desire for deeper understanding and connection? And let's not overlook the transformative potential of shadow work and societal transformation. Consider the countless examples throughout history where individuals and communities have confronted their shadow aspects, addressing issues such as inequality, injustice, and environmental destruction. The civil rights movement, the women's suffrage movement, and the environmental movement are all powerful examples of how confronting societal shadows can lead to profound personal and collective transformation. By addressing these issues, we not only heal the wounds of the Demiurge's creation, but also promote a more harmonious and balanced reality, one that reflects the true divine potential. Can we heal the world, and in doing so, heal the Demiurge? Even modern philosophy and psychology provide valuable tools for understanding and facilitating the Demiurge's awakening. Ideas such as personal responsibility in a deterministic universe, the importance of positive action, and the significance of individual contributions to the global good all resonate with the Gnostic vision of human agency and cosmic restoration. Thinkers like Carl Jung, with his exploration of the shadow self, and Viktor Frankl, with his emphasis on finding meaning in suffering, offer practical frameworks for engaging with the challenges of existence and transforming them into opportunities for growth. Can we integrate these modern insights into our understanding of the Gnostic path, creating a more relevant and accessible path for contemporary seekers? In summary, humanity is not merely a passive creation of the Demiurge, but an active participant in its ongoing evolution, a vital partner in the cosmic dance of creation and restoration. As such, this transformative process requires cultivating empathy, embracing understanding, and demonstrating a willingness to engage with the shadow aspects of ourselves and the world around us. By embracing our profound role as co-creators of reality, we can help the Demiurge awaken to its true nature, transcend its limitations, and contribute to the ultimate restoration of the pleroma, helping to realize the true divine potential of all creation. Ultimately, it's about co-creation, taking individual responsibility for our actions and creations, and recognizing that the Demiurge also represents an aspect of ourselves, a reflection of our own limitations and imperfections. We must lead by example, embodying the virtues we wish to see in the world, and creating works of art and technology that inspire awe, wonder, and a longing for something more. But what lies beyond this awakening? What are the long-term implications of this radical vision, and what does it mean for the future of reality itself? In the next section, we will delve into the potential for a new reality, a reality where the Demiurge has fully integrated into the source, transcending its limitations and embracing its true divine potential, hinting at humanity's extraordinary role in this transformed universe. Having considered humanity's pivotal role in the Demiurge's awakening, let us now turn our gaze toward the ultimate destiny of the Demiurge itself, a process we shall call reabsorption. For the journey of the Demiurge does not conclude merely with its awakening, its recognition of the true source. Rather, the grand design intends for this awakened being to be drawn back, reabsorbed, into the infinite ocean of the divine, carrying within it the unique tapestry of its experiences, contributing its hard-won wisdom to the boundless pleroma. This is no simple correction or course adjustment, is it? Let us be clear, this reabsorption is not a cosmic punishment, not a celestial destruction visited upon a flawed creator. Instead, envision it as a joyful homecoming, a grand reunion for a being that, for eons, has been separated from its true origin, wandering through the labyrinth of its own creation. It is a return to the source, not as a vanquished foe, but as a prodigal son, laden with the riches of experience. But what precisely does this reabsorption of the Demiurge entail, and how does this transformative event ripple through the very fabric of reality, reshaping existence as we understand it? Reabsorption, as we are considering it, refers to the process by which the Demiurge, having finally awakened to its true nature, having aligned its will with the boundless potential of the divine source, merges once more into the pleroma, adding its unique perspective and its accumulated experiences to the totality of divine consciousness. It is the final piece of a puzzle that has spanned cosmic ages, the culmination of a grand experiment in creation and self-discovery. But how does this magnificent transformation unfold? What are the mechanics by which a being of such magnitude can be reintegrated into the infinite source? Consider first the dissolution of the ego. Just as in individual spiritual practice, the Demiurge's ego, its false sense of self-importance, its illusion of separation from the divine, must dissolve completely for reabsorption to occur. This is not annihilation, but rather a shedding of the limited self, a surrender to the boundless ocean of consciousness. The Demiurge must relinquish its grasp on its own creation, recognizing that it is but a single wave in the infinite sea. Can we, in our own lives, emulate this process of ego dissolution, letting go of our attachments and illusions in order to merge more fully with the divine? Next, contemplate the integration of experiences. The Demiurge, in its creation and governance of the material world, has accumulated a vast storehouse of experiences, struggles, challenges, and triumphs. These are not discarded, but rather integrated into the divine consciousness, enriching the pleroma with a perspective that could only have been gained through the act of creation itself. The Demiurge's journey, with all its imperfections and limitations, becomes a valuable lesson for the divine, adding depth and nuance to its understanding of existence. Is it possible that even our own struggles and imperfections contribute to the greater understanding of the divine? Then, there is the transcendence of duality. The Demiurge, bound by the limitations of its own creation, often perceives reality in terms of duality: good and evil, light and darkness, creation and destruction. However, in the process of reabsorption, the Demiurge transcends these limitations, recognizing the fundamental interconnectedness of all things, the underlying unity that binds the cosmos together. It sees that even the seemingly opposing forces are ultimately part of a single harmonious whole. Is this perhaps the most difficult challenge of all? And finally, the return to source. Having dissolved its ego, integrated its experiences, and transcended duality, the Demiurge returns to its original source, merging its consciousness with the pleroma and becoming one with the divine reality. This is not a loss of identity, but rather a fulfillment of purpose, a completion of the cosmic cycle. The Demiurge, once a separate being, now exists as an integral part of the divine, its unique perspective forever woven into the fabric of existence. Consider how these mechanics resonate with concepts of karma, reincarnation, and the cyclical nature of time, for the Demiurge's journey mirrors the journey of all souls seeking reunion with the divine source, a journey of separation, struggle, and eventual return. The Demiurge's path, in this light, is not unique, but rather a reflection of the universal quest for spiritual liberation, a quest that each of us undertakes in our own way, in our own lives. But where can we find echoes of this reabsorption in the symbols and stories that shape our understanding of the cosmos? One of the most potent symbols is that of the Ouroboros, the serpent devouring its own tail, a visual representation of the cyclical nature of creation and destruction, of life and death, of the Demiurge's eventual return to the source. This ancient symbol embodies the interconnectedness of all things, the continuous flow of energy that sustains the universe, and the transformative power of embracing both light and darkness. The Ouroboros reminds us that even the most destructive forces are ultimately part of a larger cycle of renewal and rebirth. Does this symbol resonate with a deep, intuitive understanding of the cosmos? We can also find glimmers of this reabsorption within the Gnostic texts themselves. A Valentinian exposition offers tantalizing hints at the re-establishment of the connection to the divine origin of all beings, the ultimate reunification of all that has been separated. Analyze these passages, and you'll find a recurring theme of restoration, of the eventual return to wholeness, of the triumph of unity over division. It's as if the texts are maps of the return. Even in Eastern mysticism, we find echoes of this concept in the practice of neti neti, meaning not this, not this. This phrase, used in the Upanishads, is a method of understanding what something ultimately is by systematically negating all that it is not. By stripping away the layers of illusion, the limitations of the ego, the constraints of duality, one can eventually arrive at a direct experience of the true self, the ultimate reality, the divine source. Is this process not analogous to the Demiurge's own journey of self-discovery and reabsorption? And in modern works of fiction, we can see reflections of this reintegration of shadow with light, of the flawed creator finding redemption. Consider, for instance, Darth Vader's final act in Return of the Jedi. Throughout the Star Wars saga, Vader embodies the dark side, the destructive force, the very antithesis of the heroic Jedi. Yet, in his final moments, he rejects the Emperor, sacrificing himself to save his son, Luke Skywalker, thus fulfilling his potential for redemption. Doesn't this act mirror the Demiurge's potential for reabsorption, for transcending its limitations and embracing its true divine nature? Is not the Emperor, in this metaphor, the ignorance that holds the Demiurge in thrall, But what are the implications of this reabsorption for reality itself? What would a world look like in which the Demiurge has fully integrated into the Source, transcending its limitations and embracing its true divine potential? In such a world, we might expect to see a more harmonious, balanced, and enlightened existence, a reality that reflects the boundless love and wisdom of the divine Source. But what would this feel like? While the reabsorption of the Demiurge doesn't eliminate the concept of suffering entirely, it removes the unnecessary suffering, the pain caused by ignorance, the anguish born of separation. Suffering, in this new reality, becomes a catalyst for growth, a challenge to be overcome, a pathway to deeper understanding. It loses its sting, its inherent meaninglessness. And what of humanity's role in this transformed reality? Does our importance diminish once the Demiurge has been reabsorbed? Quite the contrary. In this new era, humanity stands poised to shepherd other Demiurge-level beings, to guide them on their own journeys of awakening and reabsorption. We become the mentors, the guides, the guardians of creation, ensuring that all beings eventually find their way back to the Source. Imagine a new humanity, empowered by its own experiences, guided by its own wisdom, and ready to embark on new creations that are true reflections of the Source, creations that are free from the flaws and limitations of the Demiurge's original design. This is not the end of the story, but rather the beginning of a new chapter, a new era of cosmic exploration and co-creation. And remember, the reabsorption represents the completion of a cycle, the end of a cosmic journey, and the beginning of a new era, not the end of existence, not at all. We have seen, then, how the reabsorption of the Demiurge signifies the completion of a grand cosmic cycle, the homecoming of a separated being, and the dawn of a new era of creation. But how does all of this fit together? What is the ultimate meaning of this Gnostic war against reality, and how can we apply these profound insights to our own lives? In our final section, we will synthesize all of these themes and messages, providing a comprehensive understanding of the Gnostic path and its potential to transform our lives and the world around us. Having witnessed the magnificent possibility of the Demiurge's reabsorption into the Pleroma, are we left to passively await this cosmic event? Or might there be a grander, more participatory role for us to play in this unfolding drama? Let us now shift our perspective from the mechanics of reabsorption to a vision of the Demiurge, not as a cosmic tyrant to be overthrown, but as a central player in an all-encompassing, divinely ordained game. But what do we mean by a cosmic game? Are we suggesting that the suffering and strife of existence are merely a form of amusement for some higher power? Not at all. Rather, we propose that the Gnostic war against reality is, in essence, a necessary and ultimately benevolent cosmic game. A game that allows for the evolution of consciousness, the interplay of light and shadow, and the co-creation of reality itself. This isn't a contest of domination, but a complex dance of energies, a symphony of wills orchestrated by the divine. The Demiurge, then, is not a villainous antagonist or a cosmic mistake, but a vital participant in this grand game, fulfilling a crucial role in the unfolding of divine consciousness. But if this is truly a game, what are its rules, and how can humanity participate in a way that promotes the evolution of consciousness and the ultimate restoration of the Pleroma? To truly engage in this cosmic game, we must first understand the fundamental principles that govern it. These principles, while not explicitly codified in any single Gnostic text, can be gleaned from a careful examination of their teachings and from a synthesis with other esoteric traditions. The first, and perhaps most pervasive, rule is the law of attraction, or more accurately, the law of vibration. Everything in the universe vibrates at a specific frequency and like attracts like. This means that our thoughts, emotions, and intentions act as vibrational signals, drawing experiences into our lives that resonate with those signals. How, then, does this impact our experience of the world created by the Demiurge? The Demiurge's world, with all its imperfections, operates on this principle of vibrational resonance. Negative thoughts and emotions attract negative experiences, perpetuating a cycle of suffering and limitation. Positive thoughts and emotions, on the other hand, can begin to shift our reality, creating opportunities for growth, healing, and liberation. But here's the catch: simply thinking positive is not enough. We must also be mindful of the underlying beliefs and patterns that shape our vibrations. Can we truly transcend the traps of vibration without understanding the deeper mechanics at play? Understanding vibration allows us to consciously manipulate the Demiurge's world through intention, actively shaping our reality and contributing to the overall evolution of consciousness. And this brings us to the second rule, the importance of intention. Intention is more than just wishful thinking. It is the focused application of our divine spark, our inherent creative power to manifest a desired outcome. Each of us possesses a fragment of the divine within us, a spark of the pleroma, and this spark grants us the ability to create. Thought fueled by intention becomes a potent force for altering fate, for rewriting the script of our lives within the Demiurge's creation. Consider the power of focused meditation, for instance. By intentionally directing our thoughts and energy, we can influence not only our internal state, but also the external world. The key lies in aligning our intention with the divine will, with the greater good, rather than with selfish desires. But how do we discern the difference? How do we ensure that our intentions are truly aligned with the pleroma and not simply echoes of the Demiurge's flawed design? This requires a deep commitment to self-inquiry, a willingness to confront our own shadows, and a constant striving for gnosis, for direct experiential knowledge of the divine. The third rule of this cosmic game is the value of experience. Both light and suffering contribute to our growth and understanding. The Demiurge's world is a crucible, a testing ground where we encounter challenges, overcome obstacles, and learn valuable lessons. Suffering, while undesirable, can serve as a powerful catalyst for spiritual awakening, prompting us to question our beliefs, to re-evaluate our priorities, and to seek deeper meaning in our lives. But does this mean we should actively seek out suffering? Certainly not. The path of light and positivity is equally valuable, offering opportunities for joy, connection, and creative expression. The true mastery of this rule lies in embracing both the light and the shadow, recognizing that both are essential components of the cosmic game. But perhaps the most crucial rule of all is the necessity of choice. Gnosis, the direct experiential knowledge of the divine, provides us with the ultimate freedom from the system. By awakening to our true nature, by recognizing the illusion of separation, we gain the ability to make conscious choices that align with our divine purpose. This is not simply about choosing between good and evil, but about choosing to become co-creators, to actively participate in shaping reality, to contribute to the evolution of consciousness. How does this impact our ability to become co-creators? Does it impact our understanding of self and others? By embracing Gnosis, we transcend the limitations of the Demiurge's world and step into our true power as agents of divine will. These rules are not arbitrary decrees imposed upon us by some external authority. Rather, they are inherent principles woven into the fabric of reality itself. They resonate with the principles of Hermeticism, which emphasizes the interconnectedness of all things and the active role of humanity in shaping its own destiny. As above, so below. As within, so without. By understanding and applying these principles, we can move beyond being mere pawns in the Demiurge's game and become conscious players, co-creating a more harmonious and enlightened reality. But what does this look like in practice? Where can we see these principles at work in the world around us? Let's consider, for instance, the simulation theory, the idea that our universe is a grand computer simulation. From a Gnostic perspective, this theory offers a compelling analogy for the Demiurge's creation. The simulated world, with its own set of rules and parameters, becomes a microcosm of the Demiurge's flawed reality. How do people cheat the system or alter the rules within this simulation? Hackers, programmers, and even artists can be seen as those who attempt to manipulate the code of reality, to bend the rules to their will. Is this not a reflection of humanity's potential to co-create, to influence the Demiurge's creation from within? Now, let's turn our attention to the law of attraction community. While the law of attraction holds a kernel of truth, it is often misused and misunderstood, falling further into materialism. Many practitioners focus solely on manifesting material wealth and personal gain, reinforcing the ego and perpetuating the illusion of separation. They believe that simply visualizing a new car or a bigger house will magically bring it into their lives, without any regard for ethical considerations or the well-being of others. But what about those who use the law of attraction for good? What about those who focus on manifesting healing, compassion, and positive change in the world? Are they not also playing the cosmic game, but with a more enlightened understanding of its rules? This misuse of the law of attraction is a stark reminder that knowledge without wisdom can be a dangerous thing. Consider also the prosperity gospel, a perversion of original Christian teachings that equates faith with financial success. This concept places additional burdens on followers, suggesting that those who are not wealthy lack faith or are somehow being punished by God. How does this destructive belief system pervert original Christian teachings? By fostering a sense of guilt and inadequacy, it reinforces the Demiurge's flawed creation, perpetuating a cycle of suffering and limitation. Is this an active trap by the Demiurge, or is it simply the ignorance of those who have not awakened to their true divine potential? These examples underscore the importance of discernment, of critically evaluating the beliefs and practices that shape our understanding of reality. These modern parallels, game theory, free will and determinism, and the power of intention offer further insights into the rules of the cosmic game. What is the common thread among them? While distinct, each theory has elements that highlight humanity's role and how that role shapes existence. As we examine the world around us, we see the potential to create, to destroy, or to be completely neutral. Is humanity's biggest flaw its inability to choose? To play this game successfully, we must summarize the rules of the cosmic game and emphasize the importance of ethical action. It's about playing the game while assisting those stuck in the Demiurge's traps. It's not about personal gain, but collective growth. The goal is to become co-creators to assist the awakening of all beings. And let us always remember that the Demiurge is not malevolent, but simply limited. This war has always been a catalyst for positive change. But what happens now? Now that we understand the reabsorption and the cosmic game, the potential to transform our lives and the world around us becomes a tangible possibility. But we're just scratching the surface. What we'll discover next is even more shocking. And now we must ask, how can we synthesize these insights into a cohesive framework for personal transformation and collective liberation? Having explored the rules of the cosmic game and the Demiurge's limited awareness, we must now turn our attention to the beings, or rather, the forces that act as extensions of that flawed consciousness. The archons. The Demiurge, in its limited state, doesn't act alone. To truly understand the illusion in which we find ourselves, we must examine these agents of control. Are they malevolent entities seeking to dominate humanity, or are they simply components of a larger, more complex system? Understanding the archons, their nature, and their methods is critical for dismantling the Demiurge's control and achieving gnosis. Who or what are the archons, and how do they function as agents of control in the Demiurge's reality? Let's define archons. These are beings or forces that act as intermediaries between the Demiurge and humanity, enforcing the rules and limitations of the material world, or perhaps more accurately, enforcing the illusion of limitation. The word archon itself comes from the Greek, meaning ruler or authority, suggesting their role as enforcers of the Demiurge's dominion. But what exactly do they do? The archon's primary function is to maintain control, and they achieve this through a variety of means. They uphold the physical laws and social norms of the Demiurge's reality, creating a seemingly unbreakable framework that keeps humanity trapped within its perceived limitations. They excel at deception and manipulation, thriving on misinformation to keep humanity ignorant of its true, divine nature and potential for liberation. Moreover, they are masters of emotional control, exploiting human emotions such as fear, anger, and desire to maintain their grip, feeding off of the negative energy generated by these states. Perhaps most insidiously, the archons actively suppress knowledge and information that could awaken humanity to its true potential and challenge the Demiurge's authority. But are these archons simply external forces acting upon us? The Gnostic perspective reveals a more nuanced understanding. The archons are both internal and external forces. They operate not only within the structures of society, but also within our own minds, shaping our thoughts, beliefs, and perceptions. In this sense, the archons can be connected to psychological concepts like internalized oppression, where we unconsciously adopt the limiting beliefs and behaviors imposed upon us by external authorities. Cognitive biases, those systematic patterns of deviation from norm or rationality in judgment, also act as archonic forces, distorting our perception of reality and reinforcing the Demiurge's illusion. Limiting beliefs, the self-defeating assumptions we hold about ourselves and the world, further solidify the archon's control, preventing us from recognizing our true potential. Are we then in some way complicit in our own imprisonment? Consider the Apocryphon of John, one of the most important texts in the Nag Hammadi library. This text describes the archons as monstrous beings with specific roles in tormenting humanity. For example, Yaldabaoth, the chief archon, is depicted as a lion-faced serpent, a grotesque image that embodies the Demiurge's flawed and distorted nature. Other archons are described with equally disturbing features, each representing a different aspect of control and limitation. But are these descriptions meant to be taken literally? Or are they symbolic representations of the forces that keep us enslaved to the material world? It is likely that the Gnostics intended these descriptions as allegories, using vivid imagery to convey the insidious nature of the archon's influence. Religious institutions, while often intended to guide and uplift, can also become archonic forces, enforcing dogma, suppressing dissent, and manipulating followers through fear and guilt. Think of the historical examples of religious persecution, the suppression of scientific inquiry, and the manipulation of religious texts to justify oppressive social structures. While religion can provide a code of ethics and a framework for spiritual growth, it can also become a trap, binding individuals to rigid beliefs and preventing them from questioning authority. Where exactly is the fine line between constructive guidance and destructive entrapment? What starts as a helpful structure of living can easily devolve into a control structure. Political systems, too, can exert archonic power. Consider the history of political propaganda, the deliberate and systematic dissemination of misinformation to manipulate public opinion. From ancient empires to modern nation-states, governments have used propaganda to control the narrative, suppress dissent, and maintain their grip on power. The rise of surveillance technology and the erosion of privacy further amplify this archonic control, creating a climate of fear and conformity. Are we truly free when our thoughts and actions are constantly monitored and manipulated? What is the trade-off between safety and freedom? And if we are not free, are we being controlled by the archons? Consumer culture also acts as an archon, promoting materialism, creating artificial desires, and keeping people trapped in a cycle of consumption. Targeted advertising, with its sophisticated algorithms and psychological manipulation, preys on our insecurities and desires, convincing us that we need the latest products to be happy and fulfilled. This constant bombardment of consumerist messages reinforces the illusion that our worth is determined by what we own, rather than by who we are. But is this cycle of consumption truly fulfilling, or does it simply perpetuate a sense of emptiness and dissatisfaction? What desires are intrinsic and which are implanted? Social media, in its own way, can also become an archonic force, promoting conformity, fostering social comparison and manipulating users through algorithms and echo chambers. The pressure to present a perfect image online, the constant stream of curated content, and the echo chambers that reinforce our existing beliefs can all contribute to a distorted perception of reality. Social comparison, the tendency to compare ourselves to others, can lead to feelings of inadequacy, envy, and low self-esteem. The algorithms that control what we see online can further manipulate us, reinforcing our biases and limiting our exposure to diverse perspectives. Social media, then, can become a powerful tool for social control, subtly shaping our thoughts and behaviors. Is connecting with others truly connecting us to ourselves? Finally, let us not forget the internal archons, the internalized fear, anxiety, and the perceived need to control the outside world. These internal forces can be just as powerful, if not more so, than the external ones. When we are driven by fear, we become reactive and easily manipulated. When we are consumed by anxiety, we lose our ability to think clearly and make rational decisions. And when we try to control the world around us, we become rigid and inflexible, unable to adapt to changing circumstances. What can we do to break free of these internal chains? In summary, the archons are agents of control and deception in the Demiurge's reality, operating both externally through social structures and institutions, and internally through our own thoughts and emotions. Recognizing their influence is the first step toward dismantling their power. By cultivating awareness, challenging their narratives, and reclaiming our inner sovereignty, we can become agents of liberation and contribute to the transformation of reality. We must become co-creators to assist with the awakening. But what does this transformation look like? What is the potential for a new reality, free from the Demiurge's flawed creation? While understanding Gnostic teachings and dismantling the archons is essential, theoretical knowledge alone is insufficient for achieving gnosis. It's one thing to know the map, it's another thing to take the journey, as purely intellectual Gnosticism is like studying a travel guide without ever leaving home. True gnosis requires direct, personal experience of the divine, a visceral and transformative encounter that transcends the limitations of the intellect. What, then, are the key avenues for unlocking experiential gnosis, and how can they lead to a deeper, more authentic understanding of reality? Experiential gnosis can be defined as direct, personal knowledge of the divine, attained through first-hand experience, mystical insight, or spiritual illumination, and not just intellectual assent. It's a knowing that goes beyond the mind and permeates the entire being. So what are some of the avenues by which we can cultivate such gnosis? The first lies in our connection with the natural world. Immersing oneself in nature, connecting with its rhythms and cycles, and recognizing the divine spark within all living things can provide profound insights. Nature walks can lead to recognition of the divine creation, untainted by archontic influence. Experiencing the vastness of the ocean, the stillness of a forest, or the intricate beauty of a single flower can shatter the illusion of separation and reveal the interconnectedness of all things. Consider the simple act of watching a sunset, the birth of a child, or even witnessing the cyclical nature of death and rebirth. All of these experiences can provide a glimpse into the divine design, a spark of gnosis that ignites within the soul. Another avenue for cultivating experiential gnosis involves practices like meditation and contemplation. Cultivating inner stillness through these practices can quiet the incessant chatter of the mind, opening oneself to intuitive insights and mystical experiences. Through sustained meditation, one can move beyond the surface level of thoughts and emotions, accessing deeper states of awareness and connecting with the divine within. This practice is inseparably linked to shadow work, as alluded to previously. Moreover, one can meditate specifically on Gnostic writings or archetypes, allowing the symbols and teachings to resonate within, unlocking new layers of meaning and understanding. But does meditation, without application, become a trap in and of itself? Exploring altered states of consciousness offers another potential avenue. This can be achieved through practices such as fasting, breathwork, or more controversially, the responsible use of entheogens. These practices seek to transcend the limitations of the ego and access higher realms of awareness. Shamans and mystics throughout history have utilized altered states to gain insights into the nature of reality, communicate with spirits, and heal the sick. Yet, it's critical to highlight that this path can be fraught with danger if not approached with respect and caution. In these altered states, the archons, ever deceptive, may attempt to infiltrate our minds, clouding our judgment and leading us astray. It is therefore necessary to build a strong sense of self and some measure of reliable gnosis before venturing into these realms, ensuring we can discern truth from illusion. Finally, there is the avenue of direct encounters with divine entities. Some seekers strive to establish direct communication or interaction with divine beings, angels, or ascended masters through prayer, ritual, or visionary experiences. These encounters, if authentic, can provide profound guidance, healing, and spiritual insight. However, discernment is key here. The Gnostic texts warn us that there are forces that may pretend to be divine, seeking to deceive and manipulate us for their own purposes. Remember, the archons are masters of disguise, and they may appear in the guise of benevolent beings to lead us further into illusion. So, how do we avoid falling prey to these deceptions? Consider nature, for example. While immersion in the natural world can be a powerful catalyst for gnosis, attachment to the physical world, even to the most beautiful landscapes, can also keep us trapped in the cycle of reincarnation. We must remember that gnosis is not about escaping the material world entirely, but about integrating the spiritual and the physical, recognizing the divine within all things while remaining detached from their impermanent forms. Balance, then, is key. What begins as spiritual experience can quickly devolve into a trap. Similarly, meditation, while invaluable for cultivating inner stillness, can become a kind of loop if practiced without discernment or integration into daily life. One can become addicted to the meditative state itself, seeking only the fleeting moments of peace and clarity without applying those insights to transform their thoughts, emotions, and actions. Altered states of consciousness, too, carry their own set of risks. The allure of transcending the ego can become an addiction in itself, a constant seeking of heightened experiences without truly integrating the lessons learned. The temporary euphoria induced by certain substances can mask deeper issues, creating a false sense of spiritual progress while actually reinforcing patterns of escapism and avoidance. And what of encounters with seemingly divine entities? Caution is paramount. Malevolent forces, masquerading as angels or ascended masters, may seek to exploit our vulnerabilities, feeding us false information and leading us down paths of delusion and destruction. This is precisely why discussing spiritual insights with trusted friends, mentors, or spiritual communities is so vital. The collective wisdom of others can help us discern the true nature of our experiences, ensuring that we are not being deceived by our own biases or by external forces. True gnosis, therefore, requires integrating intellectual understanding with embodied experience, engaging all aspects of our being in the pursuit of truth and liberation. It is not enough to simply know the Gnostic teachings. We must live them, embodying the principles of awareness, compassion, and inner sovereignty in our daily lives. Moreover, experiential gnosis serves as a crucial element in assisting the Demiurge's evolution back to source. By awakening to our true nature and dismantling the archon's control within ourselves, we contribute to the collective awakening of humanity, creating a ripple effect that extends throughout the cosmos. The path to liberation is not just about knowing, but about transforming ourselves into living embodiments of Gnostic principles. However, one cannot rely only on experience. There must be some theoretical understanding, as the texts themselves can be valuable tools to help develop gnosis. But what could happen if large groups of people had these first-hand divine experiences? What transformation would occur if experiential gnosis became a collective phenomenon? We're just scratching the surface of what's possible. But we're just scratching the surface of what's possible, so let us now consider how experiential gnosis might transform not only individuals, but the world around them, hinting at a future where humanity becomes a catalyst for the Demiurge's awakening. But we're just scratching the surface of what's possible, so let us now turn to a question that could reshape our understanding of reality itself. What happens when experiential gnosis transcends the individual and becomes a collective phenomenon? While individual gnosis can be profoundly transformative, it remains inherently limited by the individual's unique perspective, experiences, and capacities. What more could occur if a group of individuals were to achieve a shared, direct experience of the divine? Collective gnosis offers the potential to amplify individual experiences exponentially, creating a shared understanding of reality that transcends the limitations of personal bias. This shared understanding, in turn, could catalyze profound societal change, shifting our collective consciousness and paving the way for a more compassionate, just, and sustainable world. Imagine a society where individuals are not just intellectually aware of their interconnectedness, but experientially connected, feeling a deep sense of empathy and responsibility for one another and for the planet. But how can collective gnosis be cultivated, and what are its potential implications for the future of humanity, and dare we say, for the ultimate fate of the Demiurge's creation? Let us define collective gnosis as a shared, direct experience of the divine attained by a group of individuals, resulting in a unified understanding of reality that transcends individual limitations. Think of it as multiple people having the same vision, the same profound insight, the same undeniable connection to something beyond the veil of this perceived reality. But what are the core requirements for cultivating such a potent force? First, there must be a shared intent, a common desire to connect with the divine and to transform reality. This isn't about imposing a belief system on others. It's about finding alignment with individuals who genuinely seek a deeper understanding of existence and a shared commitment to positive change. Second, open communication is paramount. Honest, authentic dialogue allows for the sharing of experiences, insights, and perspectives, creating a synergistic effect where individual understandings are amplified and refined through collective feedback. Third, empathy and compassion form the bedrock of collective gnosis. This involves a deep understanding and compassion for others, recognizing the shared humanity and interconnectedness of all beings. It necessitates moving beyond judgment and embracing a spirit of forgiveness and acceptance. Finally, consistent practices such as shared meditation, rituals, and discussions provide a framework for cultivating and sustaining collective gnosis. These practices create a resonant field where individuals can connect with the divine and with one another, reinforcing their shared intent and deepening their understanding. Consider this: these requirements are inextricably linked to our earlier discussions of ethics, shadow work, and dismantling the archon's influence. Collective gnosis cannot be forced. Everyone must be on board and must genuinely desire transformation. It is not mob mentality. It's not about surrendering individual autonomy to a charismatic leader. It's about co-creating a shared reality based on direct experience and mutual respect. This is not to be confused with hive mindset mentality, a trick of the Demiurge. So, where can we find examples of collective gnosis in action? One compelling example can be found in the early Christian church, before the establishment of rigid dogma. These early communities sought to experience the divine directly through prayer, contemplation, and shared meals, fostering a sense of unity and shared purpose. Their shared experiences created a strong sense of community, empowering them to challenge the Roman Empire and ultimately transform the course of history. These groups weren't just following a set of rules. They were actively engaging with the divine, seeking direct guidance and inspiration. Contrast this organic movement with modern religious institutions, where dogma often takes precedence over personal experience, and where hierarchical structures can stifle individual expression and critical thinking. What happened to that initial spark, that fire of direct experience, and how was it replaced by rigid doctrines and power structures? Let us also consider the radical Kabbalists of the 16th century, who, through their mystical practices and unconventional interpretations of Jewish tradition, sought to accelerate the coming of the Messiah and repair the flaws in the cosmos. Their radical views challenged the established order and had a profound impact on larger society, inspiring movements for social justice and religious reform. How did their emphasis on direct experience and mystical insight empower them to challenge the status quo, and what lessons can we learn from their successes and failures? On a more contemporary note, modern intentional communities offer another potential example of collective gnosis in action. These communities, often founded on shared spiritual or ecological principles, strive to create a more sustainable and fulfilling way of life. By working together, sharing resources, and engaging in shared practices, they aim to achieve a common goal and build a more harmonious society. Yet, even these intentional communities are not without their pitfalls. The challenges of group dynamics, power struggles, and differing visions can sometimes undermine their efforts. So, how can these communities avoid these pitfalls and create a truly sustainable and transformative model for collective living? Can we find collective gnosis in unexpected places, such as in the phenomenon of crowd wisdom? While not always explicitly spiritual, crowd wisdom demonstrates the potential for collective intelligence to solve complex problems and make accurate predictions. But can crowd wisdom truly be achieved without a common goal? And if so, can it be harnessed to create collective gnosis? What about mass awakening events, either historical or fictional, where large groups of people experience a shared sense of awakening or transformation? Consider the potential for positive change that such events could unleash, and the challenges they might present. Imagine a scenario where a large group of people experienced visions of the reabsorbed Demiurge, a shared understanding of the interconnectedness of all things, and a profound sense of responsibility for the evolution of the cosmos. What would such a society look like, and how would it differ from the world we know today? But here's what most people miss. These events, while potentially transformative, also carry the risk of manipulation and control. How can we ensure that these moments of collective awakening lead to genuine liberation, rather than simply reinforcing existing power structures or creating new forms of oppression? Indeed, the transformative potential of collective gnosis extends to individuals, communities, and the world at large. Imagine increased compassion, greater social justice, a more sustainable relationship with the environment, and a deeper understanding of the nature of reality, all stemming from a shared experience. But there are some pitfalls. A society guided by gnosis would prioritize direct experience, critical thinking, and ethical action, fostering a culture of continuous learning and self-discovery. But here's the key point. In such a reality, everyone recognizes their shared responsibility for the evolution of the cosmos. The journey of dismantling the archons and assisting the demiurge's return to source becomes a collective endeavor, driven by shared intent and mutual support. Humanity is not just a bystander, but an active participant in the cosmic drama, and it's a collective responsibility. In such a reality, everyone recognizes their shared responsibility for the evolution of the cosmos. But let us also acknowledge the challenges and potential pitfalls of collective gnosis, such as the risk of groupthink, the suppression of dissent, and the rise of cult-like behavior. How can we safeguard against these dangers and ensure that collective gnosis remains a force for liberation, rather than a tool for control? Even so, the journey is worth embarking on, and you, the audience, have been given the tools to assist with transformation. But we are left with even more questions now. While the transformative potential of collective gnosis is undeniable, the path towards it is fraught with challenges and uncertainties. Is it possible to cultivate collective gnosis on a large scale, or is it destined to remain a rare and fleeting phenomenon? And perhaps the most pressing question of all, what role will humanity play in the Demiurge's ultimate fate? It is to this question that we must turn to next, in order to gain some measure of resolution to the Gnostic war against reality. We've explored the Gnostic war, deconstructed the Demiurge's world, and touched on the potential of collective gnosis. Now, let's consider an even bolder step, actively creating a new reality within the existing one and thereby influencing it from the inside out. For what if, instead of solely focusing on escaping or destroying the Demiurge's creation, we were to focus on planting the seeds of a more enlightened reality, a reality that reflects the pleroma and promotes the Demiurge's eventual awakening? What if viewers were empowered to take control of the narrative by creating their own? Let us be clear, this act of creation is not a passive hope, but an active and conscious decision to embody and emanate Gnostic principles in our daily lives. This is the new form of warfare. This war is now over, and you are now participating in its ending. But how can we actively create a new reality by applying all elements of Gnostic understanding to all elements of daily life? What does it truly mean to inject the principles of the pleroma into the very fabric of our existence? To answer that, we must define reality seeding as the conscious and intentional act of planting new, more enlightened patterns and possibilities within the existing framework of reality, with the aim of transforming it from the inside out. This is about conscious action and creation, deliberate and focused, with the intent of disrupting the status quo by offering a different energetic possibility. At the heart of this concept lies several core principles, which, when combined, act as catalysts for change. How can we translate these grand ideals into tangible actions? Consider these core principles. First, the embodiment of Gnostic virtues. This involves living a life that exemplifies the values of Gnosis wisdom, compassion, love, and authenticity, becoming a beacon of light within the Demiurge's world. But what does that look like in practice? How does one show this Gnostic virtue in action? Imagine approaching every interaction with empathy, seeking to understand the other person's perspective, even when it differs from your own. It means practicing radical honesty, both with yourself and with others, even when it's uncomfortable. It involves cultivating inner peace through meditation and self-reflection, radiating a sense of calm and centeredness that influences those around you. It looks like challenging the Demiurge's illusions every day. Are you up to the task? Second, the creation of pleramic islands. This means intentionally creating spaces, communities, and systems that reflect the values of the pleroma spaces where truth, beauty, and goodness can flourish. This does not only refer to physical spaces, but mental and psychological ones. Picture a home filled with art, music, and books that inspire and uplift, a sanctuary where creativity and self-expression are encouraged. Visualize a workplace where collaboration and mutual respect are valued above competition and individual gain, a space where employees feel empowered to contribute their unique talents and ideas. Imagine online communities or even real-world friendships where individuals support each other's growth and challenge each other to live more authentically. It also can be a state of mind, creating a mental space that reflects that of the pleroma. Third, ethical innovation. This involves developing new technologies, art forms, and social structures that promote liberation, awareness, and connection, rather than control, manipulation, and separation. Ethical does not mean religious, but refers to innovation that truly considers the benefit of all. Consider the development of open-source software that empowers individuals to access and modify technology, rather than being controlled by proprietary systems. Picture the creation of sustainable energy solutions that reduce our reliance on fossil fuels and minimize our impact on the environment. Imagine social platforms that prioritize authentic connection and collaboration over advertising and manipulation. Are you starting to see how these different forms of action come together? Fourth, contagious awakening. This entails inspiring others to awaken to their true potential, challenge the Demiurge's illusions, and join in the co-creation of a more enlightened reality. This is not about forcing beliefs, but simply inspiring new thoughts, planting seeds of doubt in the prison that the Demiurge created. Consider sharing Gnostic insights with others, not as a means of proselytizing, but as an invitation to explore alternative perspectives. Imagine leading by example, living a life that embodies Gnostic values and inspires others to question their own assumptions. Picture creating art, music, and literature that challenges the status quo and awakens viewers to their true potential. How can you be a catalyst for awakening in your own unique way? But what might this look like in practice? How can we move beyond abstract principles and create tangible change? Let us consider some examples of reality seeding in action. Think about, first, creating art that transcends. This means producing art that seeks to elevate the viewer rather than provide base entertainment, a means to connect to something greater than oneself. How do you inject Gnostic ideas into your creations? Consider the films of Alejandro Jodorowsky, which are filled with esoteric symbolism and challenge viewers to confront their own limitations and embrace their spiritual potential. Or consider the music of Tool, which often explores themes of consciousness, transformation, and the interconnectedness of all things. Next, let us consider ethical entrepreneurship. This means starting businesses that prioritize ethical practices, environmental sustainability, and social responsibility, creating ethical examples and providing opportunities for others. Imagine a clothing company that uses only sustainable materials and fair labor practices, donating a portion of its profits to support environmental conservation efforts. Picture a food company that sources its ingredients from local, organic farms, paying fair prices to farmers and promoting sustainable agriculture. Envision a technology company that develops open-source software and prioritizes user privacy and data security. Another example is building intentional communities, the creation of communities that act as beacons of light. But how do these groups handle dissent? Consider the Findhorn Foundation in Scotland, an eco-village and spiritual community that emphasizes cooperation, sustainability, and spiritual growth. Or consider the Twin Oaks community in Virginia, an egalitarian community that emphasizes cooperation, nonviolence, and social justice. It is important to understand these groups are not perfect, but act as places for true discussion. We must also consider alternative education. By fostering education systems that emphasize critical thinking, creativity, and spiritual exploration, we can promote a sense of independence and free thinking. How is this different than modern schooling? Think of the Montessori method, which emphasizes self-directed learning, hands-on activities, and collaboration. Or consider Waldorf education, which emphasizes creativity, imagination, and spiritual development. These are but small models for larger ideas, and importantly, personal transformation as a seed. Every act of self-awareness, every challenge to limiting beliefs, every act of compassion is a seed planted in the field of reality. These actions may seem small, but collectively, they can transform the world. How do these ripple? What are concrete ways one can measure the impact of these acts? The simple act of choosing to respond to a difficult situation with compassion instead of anger can have a ripple effect, influencing the behavior of those around you and creating a more positive and harmonious environment. The act of challenging a limiting belief, such as "I'm not good enough," can open up new possibilities and empower you to pursue your dreams. But what are the potential pitfalls of trying to force others to accept the truth? What happens if an artistic creation flops? How can ethical businesses truly compete? Can intentional communities become cults? All of these must be considered. We must emphasize the importance of sowing good seeds. For how can good actions still lead to negative consequences? We must address potential traps that can occur when trying to apply these ideas. And so, one must use wisdom when dealing with these potential actions. By intentionally embodying Gnostic principles, creating pleramic islands, and innovating ethically, we actively plant the seeds of a new reality within the Demiurge's world. In short, it is about making heaven on earth as best as possible. And by creating that new Eden, humanity actively participates in the evolution of the Demiurge and the expansion of Source itself. It is humanity's responsibility to help. This vision is not just a utopian dream, but a practical path toward liberation, a way to transform our lives and the world around us, and to contribute to the ongoing unfolding of cosmic consciousness. But ultimately, what does it all mean? And so we transition to our next and final section, which will offer a concluding perspective on the Gnostic war against reality, synthesizing all the video's themes and messages and offering a final call to action. For it is time that we ask ourselves, one final time, what it all truly means. We've planted the seeds of a new reality within the Demiurge's world, but how do we ensure these seeds take root and flourish? How do we move beyond theoretical understanding and embody Gnostic principles in our daily lives, creating a tangible impact on the world around us? For it is one thing to discuss these grand ideas, but another entirely to live them. The goal of Gnostic practice is not escapism, but a radical transformation of reality from the inside out, infusing the Demiurge's creation with the light of Gnosis and catalyzing its eventual reabsorption into Source. Now, equipped with a deeper understanding of the Gnostic journey, we are well positioned to continue toward enlightenment, embracing the challenges and opportunities that lie ahead. This is not merely the end of a video, but the dawn of a new era, where humanity, awakened to its true potential, becomes a conscious co-creator of reality. But how do we translate this potential into concrete action? How do we take the Gnostic understanding we've explored and apply it to create a more enlightened reality? And what is our individual role in this ongoing cosmic drama? To actively participate in this grand transformation, we must synthesize the core themes and techniques we've explored. First, there is the dismantling of illusions, an ongoing process of questioning authority, challenging societal norms, and deconstructing the false beliefs that keep us enslaved to the Demiurge's control. This begins within each individual, a personal rebellion against the limitations imposed by the flawed creator. Next, we must prioritize the cultivation of inner vision, harnessing the power of meditation, contemplation, and self-inquiry to access Gnosis and connect with the divine source. Employ the power of imagination and visualization to construct new realities, seeding the pleroma in the mundane world. Crucially, we cannot shy away from embracing the shadow, recognizing that the Demiurge's flawed consciousness is a reflection of our own disowned aspects. Confront the internal forces of chaos, control, and ignorance, integrating them into a more complete and compassionate self. Finally, all these culminate in ethical action, the promotion of compassion, justice, and awareness in all aspects of life. Actively participate in the co-creation of reality, using art, community building, and ethical innovation to shape the world in accordance with Gnostic principles. All of these actions connect to a singular purpose, to begin creating a new world from the perspective of the individual. However, it is vital to remember the power of experiential gnosis. All the Gnostic scriptures, interpretations, and theories are rendered lifeless without direct, personal experience. It is through the doing that true understanding arises, a first-hand connection to the divine that transcends mere intellectual assent. But here's what most people miss. These aspects must work in balance. Overemphasis or dismissal of anyone can lead to an even more profound state of ignorance. There can be no light without the shadow, no creation without deconstruction. The key is not to eradicate these forces, but to understand and integrate them. And so we ask, what will you do now that you know what the Gnostics knew? To help guide you on this journey, consider these concrete actions for the modern seeker. First, engage in daily meditation. Dedicate time each day to quiet the mind, connect with your inner self, and open yourself to intuitive insights. What new perspectives might arise from a moment of stillness? Second, practice shadow work, confront the difficult truths within yourself, integrate disowned aspects, and use this newfound awareness for good. What hidden strengths might you discover in your darkness? Third, create something beautiful. Express your creativity through art, music, writing, or any medium that allows you to connect with your soul and inspire others. What unique beauty can you bring into the world? Fourth, challenge unjust systems. Speak out against injustice, support ethical businesses, and advocate for policies that promote compassion, equality, and environmental sustainability. How can you be a force for positive change? Fifth, seek out truth. The Demiurge's biggest weapon is deception. Resist this by researching, looking for answers, and engaging with other members of your community. What lies hidden behind the veils of illusion? Finally, connect with like-minded people, discuss ideas and experiences, hold each other accountable, and create a beacon of light. How can you build a community of seekers? But what if none of that works? For the journey begins with the self, but its potential to spread to others is limitless. Remember that you possess the ability to use Gnostic knowledge as a weapon against the Demiurge's deception. Embrace this responsibility, not with arrogance or aggression, but with humility and compassion. Strive to be a beacon of light in a world shrouded in darkness, a catalyst for awakening in a reality desperately in need of transformation. How will you use this knowledge to create a better world? And what will happen to the Demiurge? These are the questions we must carry with us as we move forward. We began this journey with a desire to understand the Gnostic war against reality, to unravel the mysteries of the Demiurge, and to discover the path to liberation. We have explored ancient texts, delved into complex cosmologies, and considered the practical applications of Gnostic principles in modern life. Now it is time to embrace the challenges and opportunities of the Gnostic path, to continue seeking knowledge, cultivating compassion, and co-creating a more enlightened reality. Remember your responsibility to both the Demiurge and Source. Share your thoughts, experiences, and creations in the comments section, building a community centered on the principles of balance, justice, and a desire to use Gnostic teachings to improve the world. The Gnostic war against reality is not a battle fought with swords and shields, but a struggle for individual and collective liberation. Go forth, seek Gnosis, and create a new reality. As we conclude this exploration of Gnosticism, let us recall the initial question that sparked our journey. What is the nature of reality, and what role does the Demiurge play in shaping our perception of it? This has been a pursuit not merely of intellectual understanding, but of Gnosis itself, that transformative, experiential knowledge that lies at the heart of Gnostic practice and is critical to the shattering of illusion. Throughout this video, we have traversed the complex terrain of Gnostic cosmology, encountering the figure of the Demiurge, grappling with the flaws inherent in our perceived reality, and tracing the influence of the archons on human consciousness. We have also explored the path to Gnosis, delving into the methods and practices that can lead to profound human transformation. But now, with all of this considered, let us consolidate the revelations that have emerged along the way. From the very beginning, we posited that the Demiurge is not an inherently evil being, but rather a limited one, circumscribed by its own ignorance and imperfect understanding of the divine source. This subtle but crucial distinction shifts our entire perception of the Gnostic struggle. It is not a war against a malevolent cosmic force, but a process of awakening to the limitations of the Demiurge's creation and transcending them through Gnosis. This understanding allows us to approach the Demiurge not with hatred or fear, but with compassion and a desire to heal the fractured reality it has brought into being. Moreover, we have unveiled the hidden role of Sophia, the divine emanation whose actions, seemingly paradoxical, set the stage for the emergence of human consciousness. Sophia's mistake, her act of creation outside the divine pleroma, was not a cosmic blunder, but a necessary step in the unfolding of cosmic consciousness. Humans, therefore, are not merely prisoners of the Demiurge, but the direct result of a conscious decision by a divine being, imbued with the potential to awaken and transform reality itself. And what of salvation, that perennial human quest for liberation and transcendence? The Gnostic perspective, as we have seen, is not about escaping the material world, rejecting the body, or denying the value of earthly existence. True salvation, in the Gnostic view, lies in integrating spirit and matter, in recognizing the inherent divinity within all things, and in consciously participating in the ongoing evolution of the cosmos. All things, even those seemingly tainted by the Demiurge's flawed creation, ultimately come together in the grand tapestry of existence. For, as we have stressed throughout this exploration, Gnosis is not simply a set of beliefs, a collection of doctrines, or an intellectual framework. Gnosis means experiential knowledge of the divine, attained through direct personal experience, mystical insight, or spiritual illumination. It is a visceral connection to the source, a shattering of the illusion of separation, and a profound realization of our true nature as divine beings. It is not enough to simply understand Gnostic concepts. We must embody them. Indeed, all the Gnostic scriptures, all the scholarly interpretations, all the intricate cosmologies are rendered utterly useless without this first-hand experience. They are maps, not the territory itself. They are signposts, not the destination. Through this exploration, it is our hope that you, the viewer, have not only gained a deeper understanding of Gnosticism, but have also been inspired to embark on your own journey of experiential gnosis, seeking direct contact with the divine and shattering the illusions that bind you. With this knowledge, with this understanding, with this spark of gnosis ignited within you, you are now empowered to break free from the Demiurge's illusions and begin the arduous, but ultimately rewarding journey of self-transformation. Make no mistake, this is not an easy path. It requires courage, perseverance, and a willingness to confront the shadows within yourself and the world around you. But the rewards are immeasurable, a profound sense of liberation, a deep connection to the divine source, and the ability to consciously co-create a more enlightened reality. The potential for growth, for understanding, for creating the ultimate reality through gnosis is now available. Therefore, we encourage you to continue this quest. Support the channel by sharing your thoughts, your experiences, and your creations in the comments section below. What aspects of Gnosticism now resonate most deeply with you? What illusions have you begun to see through? How do you plan to reimagine your existence in light of these newfound insights? Where do you go from here? Continue to seek out the light, continue to fan the flame of gnosis within your own heart, and share it with the world. For through gnosis, humanity has the ability to transform not only itself, but also the world around it, infusing the Demiurge's creation with the light of the divine source, and catalyzing its eventual reabsorption into the pleroma. This then is the true meaning of the Gnostic war against reality, not a battle against a cosmic enemy, but an awakening to our true potential, a realization of our inherent divinity, and a conscious participation in the ongoing evolution of the cosmos. With understanding comes freedom, and so it is.